All right, we're live.
All right, and you're looking at. Are we live? How live are we?
It's there. People,
Video. All right.
yeah.
The
All
blue.
right. You're. In case you're not aware, you are watching the raw, unedited version of the Sunday Morning Linux Review. If you wish to watch the final version, which will look remarkably like this one, we suggest strongly that you go to smlr.us.
Except for they're not going to watch the final version. They're going to listen to an audio only edited
Oh, yeah.
version of it.
Details, details.
Yeah.
You're right. You're right.
All right. All right. Here we go. Intro.
The Sunday Morning Linux Review with Mary Tomich, Tom Lawrence, and Tony Bemis as the Beaver.
And this is episode 272.
Free, as in beer.
All right. This is Tony Bemis.
Mary Tomich.
Phil Parada.
And Tom Lawrence.
And so I guess we start with what's going on, right? We do that every time, right?
We forgot sometimes.
Consult your notes. Yeah.
Right. So Mary, how's it going?
Pretty good, pretty good. I don't. You guys probably didn't notice that I added a new wardrobe piece to my ensemble.
Katie and Neon.
Yeah.
Yeah, there was a. I don't remember the website specifically, but there was a kind of a fundraiser for KDE, and so you could order KDE neon shirts
Mm.
because that's their flagship distro, which I'm running right now, and probably will be running for a while.
All right.
But anyway, yeah, so I ordered that. So it's really cool. It's going to be part of my wardrobe for PenguinCon. I'm excited. What else? What else? I think, well, actually, I tried to install some another operating system on my old Verizon laptop, which I think it's starting to fail because I didn't
Mm.
really. I had some problems with freezing and not booting and just kind of being a mess. So I think that
Yeah.
thing is, you know how old
That's
it is.
signs of it. Yeah.
That
Uh,
thing's about 6, 7 years old.
Yeah.
So,
Remember, you just got it when we started the podcast.
Um,
2011.
yeah, I think we had been going for a little bit, and then I got it.
No, I remember you showing up the very first time we sat down.
Did I?
Yeah, I remember us sitting in that little library thing. I don't know that at the school.
Mm-hmm.
We weren't in the main computer lab where we normally recorded. We were in the little library, and it was New Year's Eve. That was the first show you showed up at,
Oh, it was New Year's
Uh,
Day.
or New Year's Day.
Yep, I remember that.
Yeah, that was. And I don't know. I remember Matt and I both being impressed with your laptop. Like, that's so cool.
It was at the time, and now now it's going to be relegated to the trash heap. I mean, the recycle heap.
Yeah.
So anyway, but it's kind of I think that's pretty much what's been going on.
All right. Phil.
This past weekend, one of Tom's guys helped install a networking cabinet in my basement, and that was awesome. Moved the home network into it. I've been wiring up all the patch cables. It cleaned up a nice corner of the basement.
All right.
I've got my access points all firmware updated. I've converted the name of the SSID over to the server farm, so it begins. Also, my cats have decided that they like vegetables, and they ate all of the plants that we started from seeds. So
Oh,
I found
no.
that this morning, first by stepping into it, and then seeing that none of my plants are there anymore. So that was it's a good time.
Stepping into the plants, making them sick.
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh.
So-
Maybe you need to get some chicken wire.
I do. Absolutely.
That keeps cats out, rabbits, and chickens.
Yeah.
Are you getting chickens?
Eventually, yes.
If you need advice on chickens, Cass's son raises a lot of them, so he knows which ones are better. He's learned a lot in 2 years, 2 or
wow.
3 years of chicken raising. They got a lot of chickens.
I
Chicken racing. They did that at Temple Bar a few years ago. They had chicken races on Sunday afternoon.
Oh, chicken races.
This is in Detroit.
Oh.
I mean, where else would you have chicken races?
Yeah.
In Detroit.
I said raising chickens, but raising chickens sounds more fun.
Oh, it was raising. Oh, I thought
Yeah, he gets them when they're small.
Never
and then
mind.
well, then he eats them. So
That's
I really
funny.
thought you said
Yeah.
racing.
Well, I'm fine with chicken races. I'm actually excited about that now.
It was fantastic. They had these chickens, and of course, now the city is, because Detroit's comeback is really taken hold. City's starting to clamp down on stuff, so it's
Like
not as
chicken
much
racing.
fun. Yeah. So.
They took away that guy's goats too. If you didn't hear that
Oh,
story.
the guy with the goat who get on the bus.
Well, no.
guy?
Someone had decided wanted to mow Detroit with goats, so they brought all these goats to Detroit to get rid of all the grass, and the city said no, and they said, but no one's mowing the grass, so the
That's an
goats.
awesome plan.
It
Yeah.
seemed like a great idea. But the city made the person get rid of. They had a lot of goats. They were just gonna let them wander around the city.
that can be problematic.
It could be. All right.
There's a guy with a horse wandering around the city too. If you haven't spotted him, that's another thing.
Hmm.
Anyways,
All right.
So how about you, Tom? How's life been going?
life is going great. We got some really big projects approved, so we've been throwing up some videos on that. It's a build out for a fun center, and picture
a fun
picture
center.
like Dave and Buster's style
That
thing.
sounds like fun.
Yeah. So there's just absolutely tons and tons of cabling. And
Mhm.
as always, as these projects go, I'm documenting them because people always wonder how that stuff happens. So we do the behind the scenes, and we're like, we have meetings with general contractors and show you how the plan changed before the walls were up. And then the drywall people showed up a week early and put a wall. We don't know where they apparently are working off a different blueprint than anyone else. And built a
And
wall
you,
somewhere.
but you have evidence of why the budget might get blown. Is that what you're?
Oh yes. Well, and then the owner himself said things like, "Let's put TVs on the different wall." We're fine with that, but there's no electricity. He's seen a box, and he just assumes any box that's on the wall is one you can use for electricity.
Sure.
And the electrician's
Right.
like, "It doesn't work that way. Those
Oh.
are separate ones. You can't just, code things like that."
Mhm.
That's been, the usual. But we've been documenting more and more of it to show people the behind the scenes of how these things get built. Everyone just
Yeah.
likes the organized nature of something that's created. Getting it there is such a mess.
Yeah.
Our love affair with Ring Central is over, which is our phone company for us. And I learned a lot about free PBX, and I got it set up. I
Good.
learned also the horrifying nature of how phone trunking works. I learned all the lingo, and then I learned that all I do is type in whatever I want for my outbound caller ID, and I can be anyone I want.
Mhm.
I didn't realize how much of an honor system that was. So, I
It's
mean,
almost like
it's
email.
linked. Yeah, it's linked to you, but finding out who owns a phone number, not arbitrarily easy at all. This is how those scammers have been doing it. It's like,
Sure.
I
That's
was
why I never pick up the
well,
phone.
I had a typo, and I just assumed everything should match. And I realized I just typoed something, and it still worked. I'm like, hold on a minute here. And so I called myself testing, and I'm like, okay,
We can all be Spartacus.
we can all be the White House.
I was just gonna say, yeah.
So I will not abuse this thing I've learned. I promise.
He
I
says,
also-
wink, wink.
I also probably agreed to terms and conditions when I signed up to be, because we're actually might get into reselling phone service. It's been a bigger thing we're looking into. So we've just dealt with too many bad phone companies, and a lot of our clients like us a lot because we are easy to deal with. And so that's, we might just start being a phone company too. That way they can just pay one bill for everything technology related. That's kind
Wow.
of their goal. We already do their website. We do everything else. So so
Now you just need to be an ISP too.
now he's got to be an ISP. Well, we're working on that. Phil knows a guy. He needs help.
It's coming.
Hey, Phil knows a guy.
Phil knows a guy.
Said in my best Jersey accent.
Yeah, we want to become a WISP. The final minor thing that we're doing is this big project of doing a migration for VM servers. And I'm going to do a lesson learned of everything you shouldn't do when you build a VM server. And see, obviously we always take over from IT companies that were failing. I'm sure there's good IT companies out there, but my perspective is there's a lot of bad ones. That's how we take over clients. And they just set the VMs up wrong. So we're having a fun time exporting them. And each export takes about 5 or 6 hours to find out whether or not it was successful.
Oh, geez.
So, yeah. The client says, "Are you billing me for all the time?" I said, "No, honestly, we don't do anything other than wait for this to complete. So it's not like management time is very minimal, other than we log in once in a while and look." And he says, "Well, you have to be at a computer." I'm like, "What do you think we do? Like, we got games running in one window, and we just watch the little progress bar once in a while in the other window." I said, "We're always in front of a computer."
Yeah.
That's
So,
for sure.
Yeah, that's a summary of what I did, other than a
All
bunch
right.
of little reviews and stuff that I threw up on my YouTube channel. Oh, we crossed 21,000 subscribers, so that's
Oh,
exciting too.
very nice.
Yeah.
Very nice.
Congratulations.
Very nice.
Yep. including new Netgate hardware. So people like PF Sense, I got some new reviews of the new hardware they got out. So Phil was playing with it when we got here. It was on the table still.
Oh yeah.
It's a really nifty looking box.
It's an excellent box. It's
Mhm.
ARM. It's low wattage. It runs open source PF Sense.
On the kilowatt.
And it has cool lights.
Yes.
Yeah, on the kilowatt, it was pulling 5.5 watts at just running.
And if you weren't sold on it already, Phil, the lights are programmable on it, so you can make them do different things.
Please take my money.
It even has an orange glowy light. Right now, the default programming is blue is running and orange glowy means it needs an update.
Oh, that kind of programming. I was looking for one that the LED went.
Oh, that would be cool too. I'm sure you could do that. It's got a USB port, so you could expand. Actually, it has a bunch of interesting things. We took it apart. They put on, I can't remember the name of it, but it's a
I
bus
can't believe it,
interface.
you took it
I
apart.
know. It's got a bus interface on there, so you can get add-ons, and they have a link right on their Netgate does to all the company that makes all the add-ons. Basically, they just created the interface. They said, we're gonna leave it up to you what you want to do with it, but they have all kinds of different devices that'll plug into it for hacking and fun stuff. I like that as the company that their open source and their hardware is like, they don't care that I took it apart. Matter of fact, they retweeted my video of taking it apart. So
Hey.
that's how companies should be.
Yeah, that's true.
Because we have in our show notes a company who was not behaving with GPL and firewalls, and we'll get to that when we get to news.
So how about you, Tony?
I all right, so last week or last show we I guess that wasn't the last show, is it? I don't know, last time we recorded. We talked about FreeNAS, and there was an update because Tom ran into a problem where it had like a memory leak problem or something. Well, there was something with memory, right?
My memory of which server I was on when I pressed update in the middle of the day
No,
is
I see.
really where the big problem was.
Okay. Well,
Yes, there was a bug in the Samba was broken in U3, and the U4 update solved the Samba problem.
well, I was running U2, and that night my whole server just was inaccessible. It's like what's going on? I went down to look at it, and everything looked fine except for none of my VMs were running, and I couldn't get to anything. So I went to reboot it, like just on the commands, in the menu, and when it was trying to shut down, it was scrolling and scrolling and scrolling, saying cache is not accessible or cache something, like all these cache errors. And I'm like, oh, I hope that's not like broken. I rebooted and it came back up, and that was on the U2 update. And then I went to U4, and everything's like magically fixed.
Hooray!
So yeah, even my boot array or boot example, it was a mirror, and it had been telling me that the one was bad, and then the main was fine, and it rebooted and resilvered or something, and now it's magically good. So now it's like, was it having problems before reading it, or is it like giving me a false positive?
Rebuild.
Yeah.
Make sure do you using the drive encryption for the drives?
No.
Okay. As if you do, just make sure you back up the keys. I wish they would keep the keys with the export, but they're not. So I've done like 2 videos on this because people have lost their drive arrays by just backing up the config file, but not backing up the keys that encrypt the drives. That's an important thing, and I don't think it's emphasized enough with the FreeNAS folks.
It's a completely separate click and download that you have to do
In a different area.
Yep.
And it's per drive array. So if you have multiple volumes, it's per the different ones.
So but it's not intuitive, is kind of what I'm inferring from that.
Right. So
Well, that's great. I mean, an important feature like that, and it's not intuitive, or at
Maybe-
least it's not, well,
Feature request. Let's
Yeah.
like have one like main backup window
yes,
or something.
that would be nice. And it tells you when you create the encrypted array.
too
to back up
practical,
there.
Tony.
But I think it should like flash red and really, really emphasize that you should, by the way, you're creating an encrypted key, you should back up the key, and this is where you back it up. It's easy to back up. It's in each drive you click on, you can download the key. You can also rekey drives. They made the process really easy to do. I'm also in a debate with someone I have to do testing on. Someone says every time you replace a drive, it builds a new key, and I'm unaware of that being true. So I got to find out.
I'm unaware of it too.
Yeah. Anyways,
Well,
back
then-
up.
Yeah. The other thing I did was I got a HD home run. That's Silicon Dust makes these little boxes, and you hook up a like a TV antenna to it, and then you can stream TV across your network. And
Oh.
it's because it's
I don't think that's ever
network-based.
been done before. No.
But I mean, it's your own antenna, like over the air, or you can buy one that will hook up to your cable box.
So what you're saying is that you can, once you've got this hooked up and you get these signals from the OTA or over the air station, then you can, throughout your network in your house, you can stream it to various devices.
Yeah, but you take it the next step is Plex has a DVR built in now, and you say set up Plex.
Mhm.
It says, "Hey, I found your HD home run," and I said, "Yes, next." It said, "Are these your channels?" I said, "Yes, next," and it was working. And now I can, like, over the air, I can schedule recordings. I can pause and play, through the Plex
Yeah,
app
yeah.
and
That's
watch all
awesome.
this.
I like
Yeah.
that. That's really
Yeah,
cool.
so I'm excited. Except for the problem is where I have the antenna right now is
Can't
in my
get-
basement,
Oh.
and I
Oh.
get one channel.
Well,
So it wasn't. Are these your channels? Is this your channel?
Right. So I have to drill a hole from my basement into my first floor, and then first floor to my attic, and put the antenna upstairs.
Does your wife know this?
I do. Yeah, she does.
Okay. Is she okay with it?
Yeah, she's like, as long as it's not in the way. So it's gonna be
Well,
in my
it'll be right by
closet.
the- yeah.
It's gonna be in the closet.
Oh, yeah.
Nobody
Well,
goes in there
and I
anyways.
thought the problem was going to be there's nothing to watch.
Well, what are you running Plex on?
Android box.
A what?
An Android box.
Oh, okay.
So I bought this. It's HDMI only out,
Mm-hmm.
and it has Ethernet plug-in and USB, and it plugs straight into the TV, and it turns your TV into a big Android tablet. And
Only it was touchscreen.
yeah, with no touchscreen. So I have a remote that has an air mouse, and so you do everything with
Okay.
with the remote. And so we have any kind of Android app you want to run, like Netflix and Hulu and
Mhm.
Plex and YouTube and
Sling.
Sling TV,
So Sling thinks
Pluto TV.
so Sling will think it's on an Android device and run, because I
Mhm.
think that they, at least I can no longer run it off my computer.
Really?
They deprecated it, or it was no longer runnable off my desktop. Now this was in Windows, so maybe that's the problem. But
Mm.
but the fact that you can run it off your computer because Sling thinks it's an Android device, I think is pretty cool.
Well, it's an actual Android box. It is an Android device.
Oh,
It just doesn't
okay.
have a built-in screen.
Well, I'm,
like you
I'm
think your
confusing it with
tablet.
like an Android distro. So it's an
Oh.
actual
Yeah, it's
Android
like an
box.
Android
Okay,
box.
I
Yeah.
gotcha.
And the kids, I mean, they play Android games. What you would get
Mhm.
on your tablet, they can play it on the TV, and it's a lot of fun. Yeah. So then there's the Plex app. So it's just like watching TV, except you have to go into the Plex app and then say live TV, and then there it is,
Mhm.
and it's your DVR.
And
Wow.
you're pulling all of your stored DVR information off of your FreeNet box. Is that correct?
Yeah.
Okay.
And it's actually my Plex is a plugin running on FreeNAS.
Okay.
So
Cool.
yeah, so I have like 6 TB of space for my for everything I have, and my wife's like, "So how many movies can we record?" 'Cause it's like we can only get
Come
like
on, this is
3
the
on there,
important
right?
stuff.
Hold my beer and watch this.
I know. I
Hey,
said,
What's my hard drive budget, honey?
I don't know, 600, 700 movies maybe. So like, she's like, "Really?" So yeah, that's on top of the other 600 we already have in there. So
See, that's how you're able to get stuff easily, is you just kind of tie it into something that your wife really likes, and
That's
then
right.
that's how-
spousal approval is very important.
yeah, that's what I gathered. I mean, just in general. So,
Oh yeah.
all right, well, wow, thanks for sharing that information about your setup at home. That sounds really pretty cool.
Yeah.
I just do Roku, and then I turned on my I had a little Chrome box, the little it's not a it's like a Chrome
Cast.
no, it's not a Chromecast. It was running Chrome OS on a little box that plugged in my TV, and I hadn't turned it on in about a year and a half, and I don't even get a picture, so I'm gonna have to unplug it and try to get it updated or something. If something's wrong with it, I hope it's not
Yeah.
broken.
You probably the HDMI cord's probably unplugged somewhere.
It was for a while. I plugged that in. I thought maybe the cord was bad. So anyway, but enough of that. Might be a, hey, what did I do in a future
Right.
episode?
All right. Well, that's about all I was working on. I mean, there's a few other things, but I don't want to take too much time.
Mhm.
So I think we should move on. We're going on to listener feedback.
We want to hear from you. Call 734-258-7009 or email show@smlr.us with your feedback and questions.
All right. So most of the emails we had recently was related to your guys' cubes
Mhm.
review.
Yeah. The Mary and Phil show, or the Phil and Mary show. Yeah, that was it was kind of a fun review because Phil could share the practical nature, the production experience that he's got using it on his laptop, and so yeah, it was fun and it was nice. I think it was it Brian? I think
Yes.
Brian from Minneapolis.
Yes, that sounds correct. And also Cubes 4, a couple days after that show got released.
Oh yeah, yeah.
So just production version of Cubes 4 instead of a release candidate.
And I was thinking as I was reading and I know we're going to discuss this later, but as I was reading about all these various data breaches and all this stuff, and I'm thinking to myself, a lot of that could be mitigated by using the kind of structure that Cube sets up. I mean, because you could, if something happens, it's all kind of containerized and mitigated because it's in a VM and not allowed to run free throughout the rest of the system.
I think some of those design aspects can definitely be translated to like an application
Mhm.
During the application development, compartmentalizing like the database communication layer
Mhm.
versus the customer input layer and that kind of thing.
Mhm.
Also, not hashing or also correctly hashing and salting and storing uh, information from customers would also be useful instead of just leaving it out there in plain text. We'll get to that.
Yeah. Yeah, that's true.
Um,
So,
We also had a message from Clark about our Cube review. So thank
Mhm.
you, Clark. Um,
He says the same keyboard combo that you guys
Yeah,
talked about
the-
works in
Mhm.
like all sorts of other applications.
the control
Shift.
Shift C hand contortion that you have to do to copy out of the Cube's buffer and into the other VM's
The receiving,
buffer.
yeah.
Yes.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's actually he
So I
says
didn't know
he
that.
runs Debian with VMs, and he says to copy in and out of his VMs on Debian, it works like that. Same thing with VNC, X2X, and Vagrant.
Yeah, that was good to know.
Yeah.
I was unaware of that.
Yeah.
So thank you very much, Clark.
And that's really all I saw.
Okay.
So thank you, everybody. And I guess we'll move on.
Yeah.
Distro Fever, where we cover the latest hot distro releases and news.
Hot distro releases.
Yes.
There's
Had a couple.
yeah.
Yes, we have. Um, well, we've actually had a couple of BSD releases. And I'm going to get to those first. True OS came out. I think I mentioned earlier that I tried to get it put it on my ancient laptop, which um, I couldn't get it installed. But again, that's just the laptop itself. But it was nice to see that True OS, both their server and desktop,
18.03.
mm-hmm.
Yeah.
which is out there. I was anxious to take a look at how far the Lumina desktop has progressed because the Lumina desktop was specifically designed for TrueOS. Prior to that, they had used KDE, but it presented some challenges as far as the BSD environment versus the Linux environment for which KDE was written. So, but they're using the same toolkit, so it does have that kind of KDE look to it, but it's definitely not KDE. So. I was hoping to take a look at that. I might just put it on a virtual machine on this laptop here.
Yeah.
Take a look at it.
Cool.
In Red Core, I ended up installing Red Core. Remember, I reviewed that a couple months ago, I think it was, and I found it to be a nice nice distribution, and so I've got that installed on it now. So kind of not test, well, sort of testing it out as far as, hey, I'm going to leave it on here because
Yeah.
since that there's been a couple of other Linux distros that have been on that laptop.
All right.
Yeah, so that kind of caught my eye.
The Fedora 28 beta came out. So that I'm excited about that. And speaking of,
Great.
and speaking of Fedora, we had just mentioned a couple minutes
Tip
ago.
my
that,
hat to that.
Cubes 4 just came out, and its VMs are based on Fedora 25. They're easily upgradable to Fedora 26 and 27.
Nice.
Okay. And there must be a new song for OpenBSD. Maybe that'll be our closing song.
It sure will be.
Yep. So
Yeah, because OpenBSD 6.3 is out.
0.3 just came out. That's
Yeah.
right.
And being April, there's an impending Ubuntu release.
Ubuntu, yep.
So
that's
beta
right.
2 is available right now. I remember I used to install release candidate, and then on the day of release, I just do an apt-get update, and then it'll update to the main. So instead of waiting, and this was a time when everybody was downloading all at once, and it would take forever, or timeouts and stuff. So it would take literally 5 minutes to get the updates reboot, and you were running the live update.
I always
or
waited
live-
2 weeks.
Yeah.
But yeah, I remember those heady days of Ubuntu.
Yeah. Yeah. Now I run Mint, so it's like every 2 years I get a main update. No, there's point version releases, and so I'm running 17.3 right now, which I love it, and I'd rather have something stable right now. Especially now that I don't have time to mess with my laptop, I just want something that works.
Mhm.
You know.
Sure.
All right.
I noticed that there was a pfSense update the other
Yes.
day.
I was going to mention that. I loaded it. It went really smooth.
Yeah, it's a minor release. No, sorry, it's a patch level release.
Yeah,
it's
patch level.
2.4.3 now.
Yep. And we got the Spectre and Meltdown mitigations in there. Not that they're really relevant on firewalls. I think people get overly excited about it, and I'm like, what else are you running on your firewall? Like, you shouldn't be running another software. It's just a firewall. So, but they did patch it. I'm glad they mitigated it because, just in case you decide to cohabitate some other software on your firewall, which is a horrible idea,
Right.
but someone will do it. Yeah, I've already updated most of our servers. Most of our clients think are all up to date by now, and we haven't had any issues.
It was surprisingly faster than previous updates too, for me.
Yeah, whatever it is. I think this is probably not a major code change. It wasn't a lot of code in it. It's downloaded fast and updated and back up and running.
All right. Cool. I guess we're going on to news.
Tech news and views.
All right, tech news. So, Tom, I'll let you. Should we let Tom kick it off, or
No.
and then everybody can say, "Yeah,
No.
Tom took my
No.
Tom had my."
Oh yeah, yeah,
Then
yeah.
we'll take
Good
all of
point.
Mary's stories.
Yeah.
I'm fine. Do you want me to go?
Yeah.
Or do you want to go?
Yeah. Look at him
No.
sitting over there just anxious. Go ahead, Tom. Go ahead.
I'll actually start with my favorite thing that happened a few days ago. The Free Software Foundation announced crowdfunding campaign to buy Facebook. That way we can all play Libre Farmville. If you didn't know, this happened to be released on April 1st, but it was my favorite headline I seen on April 1st. It was well thought out, and they even said we're going to use the large donation received from the Pineapple Fund and use it to help crowdfund the rest of it to buy Facebook. And they wrote it all up, and it's funny, and it made me laugh a lot. So of all the things I seen on April 1st, that was among my favorites. Symantec may have violated the GPL with their Norton Core router. Also, for lulz, look up what that looks like in an image search. It is a geodesic dome-looking router. I don't know which is more surprising, the fact that it's hideous or that someone actually bought a router from Norton. So I don't. It's Phil's eyes say it all. It's a crazy-looking device.
You couldn't even put this in a rack if you wanted to. It's huge.
Well, they call it a core router, but don't buy it. How's that? And it sounds like they basically said, hey, we can just use open source and load it on here, right? And Norton's track record for security, for allegedly being a security company, is less than stellar, especially on using open source projects. If you remember, we covered a couple months back the giant flaw Norton had left, and they were less secure by running Norton on Exchange server. Norton decided to use from 2011, and it was discovered in 2017, the 2011 version of PKZip's OpenStack that had flaws in it. So if you sent well-crafted zip files as attachments to Exchange servers, you could get pwned. If you uninstalled your Norton security software in your Exchange server, you would not get pwned. You were literally safer without Norton. So
Wow.
it was introducing, and they found a series of other flaws in it. It was because Norton, even though it's open source, they were not grabbing the new binaries when they compiled. They would just keep using the old systems and never update internally. Yeah.
I don't understand why patching is such a hard concept, especially if you have, let's say, like even the most basic test routine. Does it boot? Does it run?
Well, yeah, and when you're thinking about when you're compiling in things like you need to be able to have a security tool to scan zip files. Should you not also look at the tool that you use to unzip the file and see if it has a patch and just copy the latest version? By the way, it's open source. It doesn't require a new license. You simply have to do it. But they hadn't updated in like 6 years or something like
Whoa.
that. Yeah. Yes.
Yeah.
I don't know how this is going to play out in the Linux world for those running Chrome, but Chrome in their terms and agreements updated, and they now have a scanning tool that scans for malicious files. And some Windows users are freaking out because it's scanning all their files on their system. And uh, I, I think that Google's probably not doing it maliciously. I think they're trying to help people who are unable to help themselves and scanning things, because nobody understands that they shouldn't download something that's bad. But of course, now you're just whether or not you understood that you agreed to it. So it's one more case, like so many companies, they base on everyone just says agree.
It should be a
Opt-in.
explicit opt-in. Yeah, saying this is going to now access everything on your computer instead of just what's in your internet cache. And
Yes.
Why is it doing that though? Why isn't it just
That's-
checking the downloads folder or the cache folder?
Yeah, that's really bad.
Well, they figured they want to get into that antivirus market. They heard it's lucrative. I don't
Ah.
know. I have no idea. I thought it was an odd change from Google to start doing that. The other side of it is now is if Chrome didn't suck up enough memory, it now they're like, hey, look, people have more memory free. Let's see what else we can stick in here. Yeah.
Yeah, that alone will make me go to something else. Like I'm thinking Firefox is sounding pretty good right now.
I'm
Come
really
join us.
impressed. Yes.
Yeah.
Firefox is my default browser.
Yep.
Too bad there wasn't the system that I could put like Chrome in its own VM and
You can
You can,
use that other tool to do that.
Yeah, you can do that.
You know, and I don't have it in my show notes, but this is actually something really aggravating. Chrome now has decided occasionally not to trust some of the, when you have a self-signed cert because you're running something internal, you got to do the, click OK. Chrome moved, and you have to look in the release notes to find this. This is really, if you wanted to get past it, you could type bad idea. They changed the words you got to type.
I noticed it wasn't working anymore.
It's not working anymore. It's not bad idea anymore, which I'm like, why? I'm looking for it now because I can't remember. But it was really, we had to discover this. And it was really, our answer was actually we moved over to that. But yeah, it's this is unsafe. That's the new one. That's the change.
Oh, they had to make it that much longer.
This is unsafe. Well, why'd they change it at all? You know how few people knew about it? The people who knew about it are people like us who need to know about it. The general consumers are just fine to stop. So why would you change something on us? Like,
it's unsafe.
Yeah.
I found that too.
It's just, yeah. So yes, join us over at Firefox. Our answer has been, we use Firefox a lot. We don't use Chrome. I use Chrome for a lot of the things that Chrome's good at, but my other general browsing is becoming more and more Firefox. And yeah, what are you gonna do?
Yeah, that's what I'm doing. I mean, I still use Chrome, but my defaults at home for many things is Firefox.
Yeah. Announcing 1.1.1, the world's fastest privacy first DNS service. I forgot a one, but there's 4 ones in there, folks, for paying attention.
There's Quad 8, there's Quad 9, and now we have Quad 1.
We got Quad 1. I'm still using Quad 9 because I like the filtering they do, so that's still my go-to for that. And for those of you wondering, just a couple quick little details on how it works. They use the Anycast protocol. So it becomes fast because it's a point of presence wherever you are. So if you put that in as your DNS, no matter what country you're in, it will try to find the closest physical server, but the IP is always the same 1.1.1, and it seems really fast. The privacy first thing, I don't know. You're really, when it comes down to DNS privacy, you're just moving the trust. You're going, I don't trust my ISP, I trust Cloudflare. And I always remind people that you're just, I mean, Cloudflare is a good company with a good reputation, but it's still, the point is you've just moved all your queries. Now,
I think the main thing where privacy first comes in is that they're not logging. Like literally, they are actively avoiding logging in.
I think they keep
DNS
1 hour or
queries.
24 hours. They said they have to keep some for and their analytics, and then they delete.
Oh.
They're doing it for that. They have the details written. The death is in the details. The logging's in the details. The other side of any of that type of thing, though, is that's what they say right now. They could always change, and that's the
Right.
problem with any of them. As we learned, is if they get subpoenaed for something, they will hold the logs longer, and they're not going to tell you that.
Yeah, and then it'll be buried in the terms of service. That
Terms of service change, whatever happens. The good news is, well, first bad news, then good news. First, they were supporting DNS over TLS, but then it didn't seem to work right with pfSense, and lots of other things got broke, but they seem to have fixed that again. I did a video on how to set that up so you can encapsulate your DNS, because one of the other things is because DNS passes in UDP, your packets can be poked at, prodded, and sniffed. So moving them over
That's
to
what I was wondering
TLS.
if it would work on my PSNs. That's awesome.
Yeah, yes, I have an instruction on how to set it up on pfSense with DNS over TLS, which also includes DNSSEC verification as well.
Regarding the Quad 1, I saw the other day that you could issue a tweet at that resolver, and then they would respond to you on Twitter with whatever records that you had requested from
Really?
Quad 1.
Oh,
Yeah, I thought
that's
that was,
cool.
it's pretty useless, but at the same time, it's kind of funny. And thanks, internet.
That's pretty cool. I also have a link that says DNSSEC or not that's in the show notes. And if you guys haven't clicked it, it's amusing. It lets you know whether or not it's a test to let you know whether or not you're running DNSSEC, because you guys are on my network. Unless you've done something to bypass my DNS servers, you are running DNSSEC.
Yeah, you have what's his name, Sasha Coin?
Yeah,
Cronin?
yeah, Borat.
Yeah, Borat.
Borat gives you
Very
thumbs up.
nice.
Um,
Indicates
If
you
you're
were
not running
protected.
DNSSEC, I think you get Picard face palming. And while it's doing the lookup, you get the Fry I don't know if meme. So DNSSEC is explained with memes makes me really happy.
Regarding troubleshooting DNSSEC, there is the DNS Looking Glass, I believe it's called. It helps you find strange problems with DNSSEC implementations. So maybe that's useful to somebody out there. If it is, let us know.
The looking glass? The DNS looking glass?
I believe that's what it's called. I haven't had to use it for a while, so my memory is kind of faulty. I don't have that ECC, but
There's a lot of little interesting details on how Cloudflare does it. They are trying to not block, I forget what they call it. They're not blocking when they find misconfigured DNSSEC. Because that's the problem with some DNSSEC is people don't implement it properly. If they don't implement it properly, it'll actually drop the site. Cloudflare's got some interesting methods they're using to keep the site from being blocked, and then instead notify whoever is in charge of that site, which is good. They also are using some type of multi-source verification I wasn't clear on, where they take different DNS records and do a comparison of whether or not the site's proper. So they're actually doing some better checking to make sure the validity of the site. I wasn't clear on all the things they're doing, but at least they are doing it, which is really nice.
Yeah.
GNU Cache 3.0 release, and this is interesting. There's a lot of features added. I'm still using the Key My Money, which we talked about the last show, that they have a new release too that's really, really nice. I might take another look at GNU Cache, play around with it. It's been a while. It didn't have quite as many features as the Key My Money program.
Speaking of that, I was going to mention that Craft. Are you familiar with Craft, Tom?
I am not.
Craft, it's also a kind of a small enterprise business software suite for invoicing and that type of thing. They are releasing version 0.8. and it's been around for quite a long time. I checked the repositories for KDE Neon, and they're just still at, I think it's 0.53.
Ah.
So if you're going to install it from the repositories, you're not going to get the latest version, and that may be updated. But I think it was a couple of days ago that it was made available. It's something I was going to share, but I just think it's appropriate to mention it.
They
since you said that.
and on Genio Cache, the same problem. Yours 2.6, I think, is still the stable version. So if you're running Debian-based distro, it's still pulling a 2.6 stable, even in Debian 9.
No, it's possible to install the later version. And what do you do? Do you pin it or something? or-
They actually have a tool for doing it.
Okay.
They have a what do you call it? They have their own you have the repository, and you can load the
PPA?
3 version. Yeah,
Oh,
the
okay.
PPA. That's what I'm looking for.
Okay. I see.
I had misspoke about the looking glass. I conflated the Hurricane Electric BGP looking glass with DNSViz.net. DNSViz.net allows you to see the DNSSEC authentication chains to
Oh.
troubleshoot problems.
Nice.
That's been super helpful. Sorry
That's
about
very
that.
cool. No, that's definitely add that to the show notes. 'Cause I'd like to look at that. I'm
Yeah.
curious about things. I don't think I have DNSSEC set up on my website, so, but I don't want to break things if I didn't do it. And there's no security transactions. We just have, good old Let's Encrypt and HTTPS search. So
VAZ, DNS VAZ visualization.
Yes.
Right?
Yep. Now, seeing as we're talking about logging, privacy, and VPN, I got a couple things in here. One of them is a 100+ VPN logging policy. Someone took the time to kind of organize. I think they're up to 118 VPNs in there, different services, and analyze. Someone read their terms and conditions and figured out what their logging policies are, and they listed out the ones that didn't.
Oh, that would be an
yes.
interesting chart or table
Well,
to review.
And I think I won't want to misquote the name of the VPN, so I won't say it without referencing the show notes. We talked about one of the VPN services that was really inexpensive, and what the terms and condition essentially did was they sold your data. So they offered a VPN service, and they bragged about the fact that you're hiding from the ISP, but then they literally did the same thing, and they
So-
sold your data.
So, well, now when you say they sold your data, what they really sold was
Your browsing
just your
history and
profile
everything. Yeah, profile,
okay, and
browsing
all
history,
that
everything
kinda-
they knew about you, they were selling. It was their marketing method, which I thought was. It's like I said, you're only passing the trust along to someone else.
No, I signed up with PIA.
I like them a lot. They're on the
Okay.
highest rated list,
Oh, good.
especially since TunnelBear got bought by McAfee, which everyone who watches any tech news stuff eventually runs into Linus Tech Tips, and they know that about 5 times for every video he has to say TunnelBear somewhere in some contract he has with them. You can't watch a video without the first 30 seconds and the last minute being about TunnelBear and maybe a couple drops in the middle.
Huh.
So everyone's making fun of him when they got it. Like, I've seen his Twitter blowing up. Like, everyone tagged him. It's like, and he did the video. Look, guys, I heard. And so, yeah, they got bought by McAfee. And he actually, he's recommending PIA, which I'm happy to hear about because if you don't know about PIA, they're an interesting company because they actually have contributed greatly back to the open source community. So they're not just like, hey, we have a VPN and we make money. They actually have they paid for the second code audit on OpenVPN. So they did the whole, what do you call that? It's a code audit by the security researchers. It's open source, but they paid someone to like painstakingly go through it. There's a word for
code
it.
audit and review.
Yeah, I was gonna say I would call it
A paid code audit?
Yeah, that's a paid code audit. So anyways, they hired a security team to do that and then do a full assessment and then make changes to the code and of course push it upstream. And so I like when companies give back. The problem I have with PIA is 1, they have a stupid logo. 2, private internet access. They are like the most generic. Everything they do is the most generically named. I think their Twitter handle is like by VPN.
Yeah, something like that.
It's
I
everything's like
follow
the
them on
most
Twitter.
like generically named, which only amuses me. But on the other side is they let you pay in any way you want. They'll let you pay with it. I think like gift card, Bitcoin,
Cowrie shells?
probably. Yeah, they do everything they do to help make your payment anonymous. Therefore, your entire connection to them, they don't want to know who you are essentially. So I kind of like them. Like if you look at how they set it up, they don't really ask up questions. You get assigned. Matter of fact, you don't get a username; you get a PIA number,
Mhm.
and that's how they assign it. You just are handed a PIA number, and then that's your account number from
Yeah.
there. And however you want to pay us, that's up to you. And keep it as anonymous as you want. So from a company standpoint, they're really, really good. They're also really good on the logging policy. proper VPN, support OpenVPN, they support pfSense, they have documents on pfSense on how to do the network. I expanded on them into how to split your network, because once you go to VPN, you find problems. They have a document on torrenting. Like, they tell you how to torrent with their service. Find another VPN that even allows it. Not only has it has a document on how to do it.
What is your Twitter handle?
Something,
By VPN?
something like that. It's something really. Everything about them is like this weird. You can find it from the PIA website. Type in PIA VPN. Go to the website and click under. Also, do you have a leaky VPN? There's a site you can check. A guy created a thing. It's WebRTC leaks. Back to not having your DNS secured properly, and our WebRTC allows to leak something like your local IP address, but they also found ways to get your public IP address from there. So there's a test you can do of which VPNs are leaking, which ones are not. Or you can just go for a full stack VPN and make your life good. Also related to that, something that I learned doing my VPN testing with, I did a full audit of all the data that goes through. I loaded the PIA VPN on a Windows 10 machine, because most people run Windows. Windows 10 does something interesting. So even though the DNS does not leak, PIA does a good job without leaking the DNS. It wraps everything in a tunnel. I didn't realize this. The telemetry that comes out of Windows 10 goes to IPs, not DNS. So when you do that, you still watch telemetry data leak out. It doesn't reveal your IP address, because it's only going to Microsoft servers, but they've actually hard-coded in Windows 10. That way, when you monkey with the DNS, they're not using DNS lookups at all.
Can't you, but I remember seeing that, and that was a big complaint as far as
Yes.
information that was being sent back to
Yes.
Microsoft. But can't you, in your router, block those IP addresses?
Yes, you'd have to block. There's a list. Someone's made compiled the list of them. They're all over the place, because it round robins through all of them. And yeah, you can block all those. So far, what I've been told, I've not verified this. If you block them, it does not break activation. But I think that's a matter of time before Microsoft says, if you're not going to give us telemetry data, we're going to deactivate Windows. So something Windows has to do, and this does go with VPN, is it does keep authenticating itself to make sure it stays online. So once you get a license from Windows 10, you don't permanently have it. It has to keep phoning home. I know, because when I play with virtual machines and I fork one of my Windows 10, it breaks all the other ones, because they're all built based off the same license. And I don't know if this violates a license or not. I do it for testing purposes. I fork Windows 10, I install something, see if I like it, and if I either merge it back to the main or I don't and delete it, and it breaks the registration.
Yeah.
So you said that you're still leaking data through the telemetry. Is it the telemetry itself that's sending it out, not the IPs that it's going to?
It's going to IP address.
No, but I mean, isn't that what the VPN is doing? Is it sending all your IP information down the VPN?
Yep.
So even if it's going per IP address, it's still going to go down the VPN.
It
and then
doesn't, though.
out.
It goes around it. That's what I found interesting.
But isn't that the whole purpose of a VPN? Is
I know.
because I
Right,
mean,
but
what if
when
I
you're the
type in my
hardware
own? Well, what if I
vendor
type in
for
my
the-
own IP address? It's not going to go down the VPN.
No, what happens is this
Is
is
the layer?
it's going around. So PA, when they install Windows 10, it takes over your stack. It uses OpenVPN in the background, but they have a tool they wrote, and it encapsulates all the data from your computer to pipe it through the VPN. But Windows 10 has got some other service running and just goes around it. Because like when you do the full security version of it, they actually will turn off your internet until you connect. Like they put in blocks, and it only goes out to a different adapter that it creates, so it locks everything down. Windows 10 doesn't care. So it's not exactly leaking data. It's just telemetry data is going out still. So don't use Windows. That's this moral of our story, like this podcast.
And on the VPN front, there's a tool that I found. It's available on GitHub. It's called Streisand. You know, like Barbara Streisand. The tagline is "Silence censorship and automate the effect." It's a collection of tools that this team has put together. It says it sets up a new server running your choice of L2TP or IPsec, OpenConnect, OpenSSH, OpenVPN, ShadowSox, SSH-LH, which I've never heard of, S-Tunnel, a Tor bridge, and WireGuard. It will do this in an automated fashion. It uses Ansible under the hood, so you can see exactly how all of this stuff is configured, and then it generates custom instructions for all these services. When it's all done doing its thing, it gives you an HTML file with some simple instructions to connect to your brand new self-set up VPN, and then you can share that with your friends or family or coworkers and stuff. But you have to pay for the server that it's running on in somewhere like Google or Amazon or Linode or any of those other places. Thought it
That's
was kind of
cool.
nifty though.
You know, it's interesting. I was just talking to one of our listeners, Ken, yesterday about it, and he mentioned Streisand. So yeah, that's pretty cool.
Yeah, there's VPNs are
He
being
was
more and more
singing its
popular.
praises.
Yeah.
My last two little pieces are Under Armour got hacked. Apparently they were, the company, and I couldn't, if you've seen the show notes, Phil smiling. They were apparently under armored. And
Shouldn't use app armor. Okay.
yeah, they used App Armor. If Under Armour only used App Armor, that would have solved the problem. So reset your passwords if you haven't heard about the Under Armour having using some of the tools and things that they have. What are the, I don't even know. I know who they are as a company, but I don't know what security implications it was. They make clothing stuff. They probably have IoT clothing or something. I didn't even
Well,
look. It just
They have an app, fitness app.
fitness app.
Oh, right,
my
My
fitness
Fitness
pal.
Pal.
Oh, okay. That's what it's related to. Got it. I just wanted to make a pun. And then I'll end it with the other puns. So apparently things went awry over at Panera Bread. Yeah, the security team was just loafing around, causing a crummy situation with security. It's going to cost them a lot of dough. They really
Yeah, but do you
need
have-
to improve.
Do you have proof of that?
Oh. Oh. Hey, no matter which way you slice it, this is a mess. All right. So yeah, Phil apparently got to see it in real time and to see it was a big mess because
Yeah, Phil.
he was there when it was tweeting.
You could see credit card information just sitting there in the plain text by changing the user ID. So I saw a lot of stuff that you're probably not supposed to be able to see from a company that's keeping their data secure, or not in this case.
Yeah.
I called up American Express, and the support guy I talked to, he's like, "Hey, how can I help you?" I'm like, "Oh, you'll want to check Krebs on security," and he responds with, "What?" And I'm like, "Yeah, go look up Brian Krebs on Twitter," and then he just goes, "Oh no, this is bad." I'm like, "Yeah, you guys have a good day," or, "Well, the best you can now. Good luck."
And apparently, like through the hack, they once again denied and said they weren't doing it. And didn't they not believe the security researcher?
Yeah, absolutely. You could get this information off of like catering.panerabread.com, business.panerabread.com or something like that. Several different subdomains serving up these endpoints. Oh, that was a bad time. 37 million records with credit card information, home addresses, people's full names, and all of that stuff.
Yeah, just thanks, Panera. But it's okay. Our government will protect us as soon as they go back to complete pen and
For
paper.
$1, you can have a bakery item.
For those of you that haven't heard about the city of Atlanta attack, why are cities? There's someone who wrote an article. Why are cities are so vulnerable to cyber attack? The mayor.
They keep clicking on links.
I know. Well, and the mayor's like, we want justice and we want them to go after the people who did this to us. And I agree. I just know how implausible it is. People always say, "Are you sympathizing that people shouldn't click, or you're defending the people who hacked?" I'm like, I'm not defending them. I just realize how implausible it is on catching them. It's just not. Yeah, great. I think they should be punished. Let's move on because you're not going to catch them. You're not going to find them. It's just such an unlikely scenario. Someone inside click user training is a better method because stopping the hackers, you're going to arrest them. They're going to have another one's going to do it tomorrow. So, yeah, it's a mess. It's a mess. But they were using pen and paper. I don't know what the result is today. I was trying to find an
I
update on
saw
it.
that.
They had to switch to it. Like everything in Atlanta, in the city of Atlanta, is on hold. That's terrifying. I really would like to debrief about why they don't have proper backups and why they're not using them. But then again, I'm probably completely disappointed when someone is holding the email that says, "Well, I said to do it," and someone said there's no money to do that thing, and continued on to fund some other dumb city project.
Well, or the other thing is, it depends on how big the backups are. I mean, at the hospital I worked at, it takes 3 weeks to completely restore some of the data we have. you know, 'cause
Wow.
it takes so long to copy data. I mean, when you have, you know, hundreds and hundreds of terabytes of images, then, you know, it takes time. And like we have a disaster recovery system. Is the data center is in Troy or is in Texas, and if our main data center goes down, they put it on a semi truck and drive it to us because it's faster to do that than try to copy it over, you know, from one data center to another.
Mhm.
Wow,
Even
that's a
over
lot of data.
10 gig internet pipes.
That is a scale that I have not gotten to experience yet. That takes some crazy amount of engineering.
Well, and
Yeah,
related
it's-
to directly to this is we're working with a company now. Well, they just engaged with us the other day to talk about this. They have the same thing. They actually wrote an open source imaging system for medical scanning, and it's getting extremely popular. I can't disclose all the details yet, but the short of it is one of the things we're looking at is building it on top of some FreeNAS stuff because of the ability to create snapshots hourly. So if anything got corrupted, you could just roll back to a previous snapshot very quickly. I've talked to the engineers directly. TrueNAS is doing really well, like the FreeNAS company. Because of the ransomware problem, no one's really found any good ways to mitigate the problem, but they know ZFS, if you create these hourly snapshots, differentially, you can create tons of snapshots because they take up almost no space because there's not that much data at once. But if there's a crypto thing, it suddenly creates a lot of data at once, so they can hurry up and just roll backwards to that snapshot and stop it. More companies are using heuristics too to see if there's when mass data changes happen, they just shut everything off. They're like, I don't know why, but someone's massively changing something, and they turn everything to read only at that point. That's I talked to the people at Cloudberry. They were doing some new heuristic stuff, even in their backups. If they see mass changes, they pause and alert you, going, for some reason, a lot of your data changed, and you should figure out why.
Yeah.
So the heuristic approach is helping. The ZFS snapshots helping. So just it's a mess.
You know, and speaking of that type of thing, the city of Detroit, you know, their water payment site, when I tried to set up recurring payments so that it would just automatically be paid. One of the things they required was your social security number. I have no idea, but I'm going to go to a meeting. I've got to find out when they've got their public meetings or members of the community can go.
It's because it's Detroit. That's my
Well,
answer.
I'm thinking to myself, I'm not giving you my social security number just to set up recurring payment. So each month I have to go in there and pay as a guest. Of course, I give them my credit card number, and I'm kind of curious, if you pay guest, what happens to that credit card number? Is it then just deleted once the payment's made and approved and all that? No?
It becomes the primary key in the evidence.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Anyway, I want to mention that. It's just, crazy.
Crazy stuff. That's what I got for the news.
Okay.
I think that's all my notes.
All right. Well, I'm happy to say that you did not take
What?
all of mine. What? No.
I can try harder next time.
Yeah, well, this one, I can try harder next time, yeah. This one kind of caught my eye. You know, Oracle, of course, is very litigious, I guess. They sue a lot, and they kind of have some people in the open source community don't like them, blah, blah, blah. But anyway, they apparently one of their customers was being very sneaky, and the customer actually was called, I think, Terex. And so what they do is they have a bunch of clients for whom they provide software maintenance, and they patch and do all sorts of kinds of things for these customers. So what they were trying to do is they were trying to get around the payment of the maintenance fees and those kinds of things that you got to pay to Oracle for their software if you're going to be distributing it, etc. And so they set up some shell companies, and each company had one server, so they didn't pay the multiple server fee. And Oracle found out about it because somebody from that company, instead of they logged in with one of the shell company accounts, like it's a completely different company, but they did it from the IP address of the Terex, the main company. And so once Oracle found out about it, they contacted the FBI, there was an investigation, and then they find out that this company has been doing this for years. So as a result of this, the CEO and 2 other executives are going to prison.
Oh, that's awesome.
And this
that's
is
huge.
Yes, and they said that these are the first executives ever to be sentenced to prison as a result of intellectual property litigation with Oracle. So,
Finally,
so cheating, that kind of cheating is, well, no kind of cheating is good, but just holding somebody accountable at the top. It's just good to see that that's happening.
usually all the blame gets shifted off onto the lowliest engineer,
Sure.
and then the company washes their hands of it. So
Mhm.
this is huge and
Mhm.
awesome in my book.
Yeah. So anyway, so yeah, they pled guilty, and so that was a piece of news. I thought, oh, that seems kind of interesting. Another one that caught my eye. I read there's a kind of a blog news site for Washington D.C. information called thehill.com, and on the Hill they had an article. One word in it that really caught my eye, and it wasn't Trump. It was Linux, and it had to do with lawmakers press Linux. Like, I'm thinking to myself, well, Linux is a kernel, so how are they doing that? They might have thought it was maybe somebody from the military, but anyway, um, press Linux on security of open source software. And this was really as a result of the recent, the recent, oh gosh, I think it was Heartbleed and some of those other. Well, that was a couple of years ago, but just that, and then
All of
Spectre.
the big named vulnerabilities.
Yes,
that
exactly.
Had,
That's the word I was thinking of. Vulnerability.
marketing websites and logos and all that.
Yes. And of course, as part of and they reached out to the Linux Foundation with this, and Jim Zemlin, I think it is.
Yep.
Yep. To him, and one of the comments they put in their letter to him is this: companies like Microsoft, Adobe, and Apple have the processes and procedures in place to quickly address these vulnerabilities. And more importantly, I started laughing when I saw that. This has not always been the case for OSS vulnerabilities, as OSS creators or maintainers may be globally located volunteers who can often, and they're telling Jim Zemlin this as if he doesn't know, who often have unrelated full-time employment and may be uncompensated for their OSS work. So I thought it was kind of interesting that that while there was some comedic aspects just from the way they, just Congress and tech. I just don't see those two words coming together very smoothly. But the fact that they're acknowledging the fact that it is a significant part of the underpinning of the internet and just other technology projects, that we have to be looking at that and how to more quickly mitigate risks and threats as they're made known. So I thought that was kind of interesting, and Tom will get that show note to you. And then there was another one. I think it was the last one I said that I saw, and I was trying to figure out, and I was going to categorize this as from the. So what have you been doing for the last couple of years department? So Valve says it's committed to make Linux and SteamOS a great place for gaming. This was out of Softpedia News, because apparently there was something was delisted from the Steam store navigation after a routine cleanup. So they did some cleanup at the Steam store, and then there was the Steam machines section was delisted, and apparently that impacted the Linux gamers. And again,
Right. Yeah, I heard somebody talking about that. They thought that Steam was no longer going to sell those Steam boxes because
yes,
it wasn't on their website anymore.
yes, and as it turned out, this was from April 4th. They said that it was no, they still have Linux love. It's just that due to a routine cleanup, somebody had inadvertently.
Yeah, they actually hired a guy who's got a really strong in the open source community. His name eludes me, but we actually mentioned it a couple shows ago, I think. But he's a known open source contributor, so they're kind of excited. Especially, I think he does work related to graphics, and graphics drivers. So we're hoping to get even more support.
I remember that.
I'm bad with names. I can't even pronounce them right.
It's this memory thing.
All right, so that's my little news tidbits.
Speaking of games, over the weekend I actually found a game called Flare RPG. From their website, Flare is an open source, FLARE RPG.org. So Flare is an open source 2D action RPG licensed under the GPL 3. Um, its gameplay is similar to Diablo. It reminds me a lot of Diablo 2. You use WASD to move around, and you can fight and kill things. The campaign is called the Empyrean campaign. The story begins with the player being exiled to their homeland of Empyrean, and then you embark on a quest to regain entry. The journey will take you through many regions and plenty of side quests along the way. It's the style of game is called Fantasy Core, and it's dark fantasy, and there's blood and violence and killing, and it's pretty fun.
Quick question. I noticed that there's the engine download and the game download. You got to download each of them, or can you just download the game?
There is an all-in-one that you can download,
Okay, that's what I was hoping for.
and then I was able to play it on Ubuntu. That was really nice.
Yay! And can I ask why they chose SourceForge to host?
I don't know.
All right. I always get nervous when I see things posted on there.
Haven't they kind of cleaned up their act?
That's what I've heard.
Yeah,
We
I
talked
mean-
about that.
Yeah.
too.
I think we have, so maybe,
The late.
but I understand where you're coming from, Tim.
Yeah.
Tim. Hey, Tim. And we've got the Tom bits from Tom Hortons.
Yes.
Sorry, Tom, I don't know. I was thinking donuts. Anyway,
It's
but,
okay. We're all programmers. All
yeah.
5.1 errors.
anyway, all right, that's enough.
What kind of machine does it need to run, and will it run on my laptop?
It will. You can probably run this on a Raspberry Pi. It doesn't.
Okay.
Well, no.
Yeah.
It downloaded an x86 executable, so not a Pi. But not very many. I mean, it looks like Diablo 2.
Got it.
So the engine can't be that monstrous.
What-
I mean, it's no Crisis.
I see the Engine Plus game, and then the game is bigger. Why is the Engine Plus game smaller than I don't. Okay, I'm gonna ask the questions. Either way, I'm going to test this out because it looks like it's something to be fun to play.
And then in news-related things, from the Web PKI world, Cloudflare has released their certificate transparency dashboard. It's called Merkle Town, as in a Merkle tree. It's a data storage.
Oh.
Highly efficient. You can access this at https://ct.cloudflare.com. You can see certificate issuance logs of anybody who's sending to CT currently. These would be certificate authorities. And I noticed that Let's Encrypt was something like 70% of all of the issuance being logged on and displayed on Merkletown, which I thought was kind of funny.
Yay.
And then also in the Web PKI world, Let's Encrypt has released SCT embedding. So what's an SCT? It's a signed certificate timestamp. It's a signed assertion by CT log operators, such as Google or Cloudflare, that a certificate authority has submitted a pre-certificate to the log, which means that an actual certificate will soon be incorporated as proof of issuance. There's a deep technical dive that one of the Boulder engineers has done. You can find that on let'sencrypt.org. It's pretty interesting.
Very cool.
Thank you.
I'll play with this DNS for this too. It's neat.
All right, who's, hey, we're looking down at, yeah, we're looking at you, Tony.
I did find one thing.
Yeah.
There are some hackers. You know how they say you can run Doom, run Doom on anything?
Yes.
Well, somebody got it running on an ATM machine. Yes. And then you use the keypad as the four-way, and you can play Doom right on that.
So-
So instead of taking out $50, you were
So
playing Doom.
one of those, don't ask why, but it happened. So our friends over at Podcast Detroit, they have an ATM machine in there that
Oh.
they acquired and have the keys to. So this would be great if they could put Doom on it. They've been
Yeah,
looking
that'd
what
be
to do
fun.
with it. It's in the lobby. They're like, I'm like, why is this here? He goes, don't ask questions like that.
What to do with it?
Yes. Oh yes, I will. I will send it to Dave because Dave will definitely want to put Doom on it. So that's exciting.
Yeah. And that's all I had time to get. So
Mhm.
I will throw this out there because they've been actively doing more updates and things like that. But Signal, the messaging platform that well, a lot of us enjoy, a lot of us like it. They've been adding more features, and Skype is licensing it. Going to license the technology behind it. So some people were confused and they thought
Signal open source?
Signal is open source.
So is which part of the Microsoft strategy is that? Is that to embrace or
Yeah, I'm not well.
Extend?
It's because they're getting in trouble after the censor thing. So I think they're trying to come up with a way to
okay?
let you encrypt your messages. So they're going to do it as an add-on to Skype to allow Skype is still the transport method. I thought it was weird,
Mhm.
but they're going to use some of that on there because if you didn't know, Skype got caught censoring stuff, and it became a big debate of how much of our conversation are you watching. And I'm like, we addressed this a few years ago since Microsoft bought them. All of your conversations.
Mhm.
Skype is once Microsoft bought them, it was downhill quick.
I
yeah,
think
they
any-
bought them and moved it from a peer-to-peer to
A
everything
centralized.
goes central, to the servers.
Yeah. Yep. And they also, someone created some special private links and sent them over Skype, and they were probed by a IP address in Redmond. And Microsoft first denied, then admitted, well, we scan all the links. They're like, you didn't just scan the links, you opened the web pages. Because we created private, undocumented web pages, and the only place we did was Skype as a honeypot to see what you guys would do with it.
Haha,
That's
gotcha.
pretty clever.
Yeah, and they watched it go through and probe the web page. So they're like, your system did it. It was a bot, not like a human, but either way, you're probing and you're actually following the links. You didn't just look at the link, you actually followed the link. So don't use Skype, use Signal. Signal's wonderful. I didn't know they had a desktop app. I only learned that recently.
It's basically just Chromium.
I didn't realize.
When I open up Signal, it tries to open up Chromium first, and then I can close out Chromium.
Well, they have you can add it as a repository and actually get it. Yep. Yeah. Okay. I didn't realize that ran on Chromium too. Cool. Or not cool. I don't know. I use it on my phone. So
Yeah,
Mhm.
primarily.
But the recipient has to be on Signal also?
yes.
No.
Well, to get started with it, no, they don't. I can message you from Signal and to join Signal. If you
Oh,
care about
okay.
the encryption, yeah.
When you say
Yes.
message, then that's a typical text message?
Mhm.
Yeah.
Okay, you say, hey, I'm gonna create a.
So
Okay.
the Android app will send you the Signal messages or your regular SMS
Yeah,
messages.
they could take over as your SMS
And
as well.
yeah, and that's what I did. I set my main SMS as my Signal app,
Mhm.
and it will transparently either send a Signal app or a text message, whether it knows like who the end person is.
Yes.
So anytime I text, Tom, it always goes across Signal or my cousin. But
Bill.
if I text you, Mary,
Or my other
or
cousin.
somebody else, yeah,
Yeah.
or if I text
Okay.
my wife, it goes
Yeah.
regular SMS.
And the call quality, if you haven't used it, because it uses internet to transport, uses your data plan, the call quality is excellent. You can do secure calls with it, and you can do secure face-to-face calls because it'll use the camera and phone. I haven't tried the group messaging. It works. Okay.
I've got a couple friends in Signal group.
I don't have enough. All my Signal friends are at this table.
I really like it. I really like it because you can send memes and
Yes.
GIFs and stuff right through
Yeah.
it. They make it so easy.
Yes.
You know
Yeah.
what I have an issue with is creating group messages, like text messages with a group. If I create it on my phone and I send it out to everybody, then they all reply, and my Signal sees it as a different group message.
Interesting.
Yeah, like and they all reply to the same group message, but it's not the one I created. It's another one. I don't know. That's weird. But yeah.
Hmm. All right. Well,
I
anything else?
think that's about it.
It's the end of it. That's all that happened.
Yeah.
Well,
so,
that's all
Down
you
to the bottom of the glass of the beer.
down to the bottom of the glass of beer.
Kind of beer.
All of it?
IPA?
Oh yeah, sure.
Right.
oh, IPAs.
No IPA.
I cannot drink IPAs.
Oh,
I
I
get
forgot to mention. I will mention this.
Yes.
So, this is a lot of people interested in this, and me included. So the people over at Citrix who were supporting Zen Server, are still supporting Zen Server, they give it, but then they took it away. And so when they moved to the new version, they took away and took down all the features. So the folks over formed a new foundation company group, whatever you call it, xcp.ng. It's a complete open source version of Zen Server, top to bottom. Now, there is a business interest in this. They are the people who run Zen Orchestra, and they realized Citrix's move could probably be detrimental to the product that their product runs on top of, so they forked it, and now you can get it. I've downloaded it. I replaced one of our Zen servers with it, so I can help beta test and give them feedback. I have no feedback to give them other than it's awesome because nothing's broke. It's been running for a week, and we've had VMs and everything on it. It's great. So then the only thing that does break is you can't use the Citrix Zen Manager Windows software. Too bad. I don't use it anyways. But Zen Orchestra runs perfectly fine on it. They even wrote a really cool little curl command to it. But yeah, that's ready for download and fully open source.
Great.
I like their logo.
Yes.
They have a pretty neat. It's a rocket ship. That's neat.
Yes. Yes. And they're really on top of it. They got crowdfunded. They got, I think they went above and beyond the goal for the crowdfunding campaign. So
It's always looking that up.
and they actually met the release date. They said when they're gonna release it, and then they released it on that day.
Oh
And
my
it
God,
worked.
I love that kind of stuff.
I know. They're weird. So
They're not using Fedora, are they?
no. Well, it does. Well, it's CentOS in the background, I think. Isn't Zen supported by Fedora, or is a relationship with them?
I don't know. I know that the last time that I was as Zen administrator, it had just Dom Zero had just been based on Cent 7 at that time. But this was a couple years ago.
Yeah, it's still sent. I don't know what version they're basing on, but I just know because I had to type yum to the updates. And they're actually doing something different than Citrix. So they're actually allowing all the patching through the yum system versus Citrix has their own patch management. They lock everything out.
Yeah, you used to have to go enable the base repositories to install Vim.
Yeah.
And then it's like, oh, are you sure you want to do this? Yes.
Yes. So it's in their next update. Their first update was to make it functional, and it still works in a similar way to the way Citrix did it. But they right away said this is their proof of concept. The next one that's going to be released is going to be incremental. They're going to keep up with the Citrix numbers. So Citrix at 7.4, if they're at 7.4, then they're going to have sub numbers for their updates. So by the way, you can transfer the VMs transparently.
Oh, very cool.
So they work fine. I exported VMs out of Citrix and brought them right into XC. Appreciate that. It's smooth.
That's always nice to hear.
Yes. All right. Do we have music?
See,
Wait,
actually-
we have Linux convention soon.
Oh. Okay. Sorry. Got ahead of us.
April. Actually, it's our first podcast in April. So I do have some Linux conventions or open source software conventions. Well, the first one is Linux Fest Northwest. The 2018 edition of Linux Fest Northwest is scheduled to occur on Saturday, April 28th and April 29th. That's out in Bellingham, Washington. That's a pretty large Linux Fest. And I think this is almost their 20th year. I believe next year will be their 20th anniversary.
Wow.
So they're going strong out in Bellingham. Also, there is for anyone who's interested in ZFS, there's a ZFS user conference. This is going to be, I believe, on Thursday and Friday. Let me pull this up really quickly just to confirm it. Yeah, April 19th and 20th, which I think is that Thursday and Friday. No, yeah, Thursday and Friday. I knew it. I was just testing myself. But anyway, so that is going to be out at Norwalk, Connecticut. So, and for a small fee of about $100, you can go out there for a day and a half of lectures, networking, other types of sessions on the ZFS file system.
Ooh.
So, yeah. So that's what's kind of
We
cool.
really got to get Michael Lucas to talk about ZFS sometime. We got to get him.
Yeah, we should. And he gave us a book. He just released a book on
SSH Master. Yeah.
Yeah.
You let me borrow that the other weekend, and
but
I've been poking through it.
cool.
He's got some good humor. I
Yes.
like
he's-
his writing style.
That's I think when you're reading, I'll say dry subject matter, because sometimes technology is kind of dry. Um, I just say that, maybe you guys don't see that, but I do.
We're enthusiastic about technology.
Oh, I'm enthusiastic about it, but sometimes when you're, but the topic itself,
Yeah.
when you see a book, it can be
Yes.
very dry. But what Michael Lucas does, and does very effectively, is he injects some humor into it. So you just keep on reading, because he helps you, I think, remember what you read, and just makes it more palatable.
I've
So,
enjoyed all my conversations I've had with them in person and at talks. So
Yeah, so good. I'm glad that maybe one of our future podcasts we could talk a little bit more in detail
Mhm.
about it.
Absolutely.
Yeah, so that's very good. And did I say the last convention I have is at the end of the month, also, and that happens to be one that's near and dear to our hearts. I'm not going to even look at you, Tony,
End
when
of
I
what
talk
month?
about it, because Penguicon.
It's technically the first weekend of May,
Oh,
but Penguin is
Never
the
mind.
best. It is the best conference ever.
yes,
yep. And
It's Comic-Con and, well, not really. I always thought of it as Comic-Con
Science
and Linux
fiction.
together, but it's
just
not.
sci-fi,
It's
sci-fi and Linux.
sci-fi and Linux.
Yeah, and science.
And science. Yeah.
'Cause there's we had a few scientists there. We had that person who's literally a brain surgeon from U of M, and they did a talk. So
Really?
yeah, I went to it. It was wonderful.
Oh, wow.
They did the, you ever seen where they do the implants and can use your brain simulation to operate?
Have you? Yeah.
Yeah, she's the researcher on the cutting edge of that. It was a great talk.
That's cool.
So that's just straight up science. It's stuff that you would have thought of science fiction. Turns out she's making it happen.
And speaking of that, I believe last year, didn't we have the maintainer of scientific Linux on the panel,
Yes.
or
Yes.
speaking last year?
That was an awesome presentation.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yep. So
There's
So
lots
anyway,
of goodness.
yeah, so that's Penguicon, and that's as Tony aptly noted, that's coming up, I think, the first weekend in May.
And this podcast will be there.
Yes, we will be there. Three-quarters of us will be there.
3/4 of us. Sorry, Tony.
Yeah, sorry.
I know. I wish I could be there.
Yeah, we wish you could too.
I've got a.
So, well, two of the three of us does. Phil's just over there laughing. But anyway, I just wanted to share those Linux and open source conventions. I think there's also a Drupal one. I won't necessarily throw that into it, but there's a Drupal convention
Yeah.
coming up. You were a Drupal guy.
I've done Drupal. Like, I tried setting up Drupal.
I'm sorry.
It's so powerful that I didn't have time to set it up.
So it's like a typical guy. You didn't ask for directions. No.
No, actually, I took a full day class. in it.
So not only
And-
did you ask for directions, but you got the book, so to
Yeah.
speak. Wow. Yeah. Sometimes it reminds me it reminds me of Blender, not because it's a graphics thing, but it's just
Exactly.
that complexity where it's extremely powerful, but my goodness, you need a degree to get through it all.
Right.
Well, I didn't put it in there, but you're aware of they called it Drupal Gidden 2. It's CVE
Yeah.
2018-7600. Basically, it's been vulnerable for years to a major flaw. So
Oh, maybe they'll be talking
Yeah.
about
So
that.
if you're running a Drupal instance, update. Look now.
and if you ever did run one, call that customer you set it
I
up
think
for.
the
'cause
White
they've never
House,
updated
the
it
White
since
House
you left.
website is Drupal based.
Whitehouse.gov,
Whitehouse.gov.
not .com.
Yeah.
Well,
that's-
that might also be running it.
It
But
may,
that's not the one you're
but it's
talking
not the
about.
one you want to
No,
go
no,
to.
that's not the one I'm
Or
talking
it
about.
is. I don't know.
I
You
went-
pick.
It is not. I went there by mistake once.
Not safe for work.
Yeah.
Both of
Right.
them now. I don't know. Anyways.
Yeah, I went there by mistake once. Any other time after that, it wasn't a mistake. No, just kidding. Yeah, it was kind of not my. Yeah, it was kind of weird. But anyway, so those are the Linux. We're going back on track. That was the Linux convention scene for April, with a little sneak peek into May.
Right.
Music,
Music. So
open.
OpenBSD.
Yeah,
Yeah. You know what I'm looking at? Their page right now.
they don't have a song.
They don't. And so we're on 6.3 right now. That's
think
just
so,
released. There's
yeah.
no 6.3. There's no 6.2. There's 6.1 is the last song that they have. But I went back to 6.0.
Because we probably
And-
skipped that one,
Uh,
or did we?
I don't. Well, there's a few of the releases that they did multiple songs on.
Oh, okay.
So this is one that we did not do. And actually, I just forgot I have the song queued up, and it took me away from the webpage, and I forgot what it's called. Hold on, let me get
I'm
back to the
sure
webpage.
Well, they're so clever with their music. I'm sure it's something quite all right.
Oh yeah, okay, it's Comfortably Dumb.
That's a wonderful song.
I like it.
Yeah. Unmute. Wait a minute. That's not.
Not the right song.
There's something else going on there. Oh, it's the Under Armour app webpage. There we go. Okay.
So Tony was playing an ad as our outro music.
Right. All right, here we go.
Are there any experts out there? Please reply if you can help me. I just poured /rf/home. I don't know how, but I need this feature now. My users are a pain. I need my server up again. Relax. Let me take the message first. Just the basic facts. Stop whining between the words. There is no Wi-Fi, you are bleeding. New vendor firmware not on horizon. Packets only coming through in waves. Your lips move, a broken audio mutes what you say. For bomb child, crappy encoder. But Pierre Prue said machines fall down, go through. Now we got that feeling once again. We can't explain, you would not understand. This is just how you are, original poster. You.
Great preview.
All right, yeah. Yeah, that's pretty good.
Yeah.
Phil was enjoying it. With some good
That was
lyrics in
fun.
there. Yeah. And that will be in the full version will be in the edited show. And then links to it in our show notes. But
Thank
I
you.
just Google BSD song, open BSD song, and
Mhm.
it brings up the page with all their songs and stuff.
Oh, okay. That's good. It's all in like one spot.
It is.
Excellent.
All right. So I guess we've come to the end. You have been listening to the Sunday Morning Linux Review. This was episode 272.
Free as in beer.
Yeah. This is Tony Demas.
Mary College.
Phil Parada.
And Tom Lawrence.
See you next time.
You've been listening to the Sunday Morning Linux Review. If you would like more information about this or other shows, go to smlr.us. Feel free to send comments to show@smlr.us or give us a call at 734-258-7009. I'm John. If you don't like it, you can
Fight my 8-bit metal ass. That's fight with a Y. instead of being on the main stage, all class skipping and violence and ordinarily it's scary, baby. I don't feel so very good, like you say I should. Feeling so excited, it's the best thing I've ever found. Feeling suicidal, there's not a chance I'm coming around. Take a shot, but I thought that you didn't really have any more of your secrets. And you can play
I'll talk over the music for a second here, but we're getting ready for the next show. So hang on for us. We'll go back.
She's alone all by herself. Her body and car's a mess, and nobody cares about a thing she says. Cut your losses and pack it in. Just taking it for a spin. Just lucky you didn't wind up dead. Playing it safe wasn't good enough. Maybe once you should use your mind. Well, it's hard to believe it sometimes, but everything's gonna work out fine. Took the chance and let it off. And then he called the cops. Pulled on the punches in his statement. It was hard to write it down. She was upside down in a busted car half off the pavement. Playing it safe wasn't good enough. Maybe once you should use your mind. Well, it's hard to believe It seems a little strange, but I just can't explain why I'm tearing out a page and then I'm sending it out over the ocean. And I've been feeling down lately, ever since I met you, baby. People say I'm acting crazy. They say that I'm more emotional. Yeah, there's something wrong in my mind. There's something wrong in my mind. There's something wrong.
We are getting ready to start our next show. Oh, why isn't the music stopping? So we're getting ready to do our next show, and I gave Phil a donut, so he has to take some insulin so he doesn't die in the middle of the show. So give us a few more minutes, and then we will be on to our next show, which we plan to do something security related. You know, what we do to keep the bad guys at bay. So, all right, and here comes back the music. We are getting ready. We're gonna do an audio test since I have the mic slowly turned on. Mary,
Say when. Test 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. Test, test. Say 1, 2, 3.
Phil,
Test.
Test.
good.
Yep.
Yeah, it sounds like we're doing pretty good.
Yay.
I missed the soliloquies that Kevin used to give me every
Ah.
time we did an audio test.
Yes. He knows so much poetry.
Yeah. Anyway, all right. So we are starting back up here. We're doing our second show, which will be released as a fresh looks in a week from today.
Yep.
And so here we go.
The Sunday Morning Linux Review with Mary Tomich, Tom Lawrence, and Tony Bemis as the Beat.
And this is episode 273.
Fresh looks. Healthy paranoia.
Right.
I'm like, going to take a fresh look at paranoia. Well, we kind of are in a way.
Yeah. This is Tony Bemis.
Mary Talmadge.
Phil Parada.
And Tom Lawrence.
So we were kicking around ideas of what to do for our fresh looks for this time, and Tom kind of came up with the idea to talk about what we do to lock down our machines or security related things we do either for our personal or at work.
Mhm.
And
I'm curious to find out what you do for that Plex system you got at home. Is that's not connected to the internet, is it?
oh yeah,
It is?
Yeah.
Of course it is. For streaming stuff, so.
yeah. Well, it's a web-based connection. Everything it does, either streaming videos and stuff. It's web-based over their own port. Was it 4320 or something like that?
Okay. See, I thought it was all on the server and you would just, it was all self-contained in there. So you can,
Oh, well, it is self-contained,
Okay.
and it's a server sitting in my house, but then I allow it out to the internet,
Okay.
or technically allow it out and allowing people to connect in. But it uses the SSL certificates, to make secure connections, and and it's authentication based, so you have to have somebody with that I give permission to log into it and watch stuff.
Mhm. I see.
Yeah. So, and then technically it's a plugin on FreeNAS, and FreeNAS, it takes time for them to update to the newer versions, but because it runs in a jail, a BSD jail, there's actually a script you can do. You log in to the command line, you run the script, and it will update to the latest version of Plex. So because I have Plex Pass, I always want the latest version so I can get the new features. So I run that script.
You put it in a cron and have it run nightly. That way you don't even have to think about it.
Oh, that's a good idea. I haven't. Well, I don't think you can, because you have to stop. There's two things you have to do. It's not just run the script. You have to stop one thing, and I'm trying to remember what it is, not the jail, but you have to stop one service, the plugin service, run the update on the jail, and then turn the
We scripted
plugin
too.
back on.
So it's a bit more involved.
Yeah.
The script gets bigger because the flappy thing needs to stop the other flappy thing.
Anyway, so yeah, and that's always the issue with running things that are either from a repository that's not the maintainer. With just about anything. If you're running any app like that, it's always going to be a delay between when whoever runs the repository updates to what the project maintainer is running. So Debian, you never want to install some things from Debian, because it's going to be so old that there might be flaws or vulnerabilities that aren't updated. Just because they don't get around to updating the repository. Like Nextcloud. I never do it from the apt-get install because it's so far behind. Even on Ubuntu, that's even more updated. I do it straight from the repository that Nextcloud runs.
I do the same thing for certain tools like Ansible. Years ago, I would just install it straight from Python pip because the OS package maintainers version was so far behind, and there was things that I needed in the latest release that weren't available from the system package.
Yeah. Cool. Yeah, I agree. And so that's important. That's more the feature based, that you need, right? Anything you have that's internet facing, you definitely want to have update right away when the security vulnerabilities.
Absolutely. I think that having at least for app-based systems, using unattended upgrades and sending it to security updates automatically. And then if you're on Red Hat-based systems, using Young Cron to do essentially the same thing.
Yeah, I agree. I do the same thing with. I haven't done it with the app base or Debian app update, but I've used the Cron and I like it.
I believe it's a separate package just called unattended upgrades.
Okay.
On my Debian-based systems, it's right in the initial setup and install. I set it and forget it pretty much.
Yeah. Cool.
As opposed to forget to set it.
Yes, absolutely. Ooh, I guess I was supposed to do that. Scratching the back of my head.
Right.
All right, let's want to get started on this. Let's talk about exactly before we get too off topic on some of these other things. What I want to do is talk about there's no security through obscurity, so let's talk about the process from when we get a computer and how we comfortably put the tinfoil hat on and set it up. Some of the topics I wanted to cover here is I like to think about that too, make sure my security process isn't leaving my butt flapping in the wind.
Yeah, you don't
Yeah.
want that happening.
Don't want that happening.
Sure. Well, besides all of the determining which piece of hardware to buy and how you pay with it, because that's a whole other rabbit hole. Let's assume that you just got a brand new device. First thing you do, check if there's firmware updates or BIOS updates. Get those installed, assuming everything looks okay to you. I mean, you can only do so much with a BIOS firmware blob. You get the BIOS updated, you set a BIOS password and then the administrator password. That way, if your laptop ever flies off the roof of your car onto the freeway and someone picks it up, well, they just got an expensive brick.
Yeah, because maybe that may have happened at some point in time to someone.
It's very, very
Just
possible.
describing that for a friend, right?
Yes.
Describing this for a friend. And we will mention, in terms of devices, though, System 76 is popular. They natively support Linux quite well, so a lot of this is going to be focused on the fact that we all run Linux on our computers. So they're a good choice. What's the other? There's another company besides System 76 that supports Libre boot. I can't remember their name. Yeah, I can't remember.
Purism?
Maybe that's it. They're another laptop manufacturer, but System 76 is probably your most popular one out there.
And to note, I'm running a System 76 Oryx Pro. They just had an update that came out that disabled the Intel management engine. So that was cool, but part of the install instructions were to reset BIOS to last known configuration, which wiped out the BIOS password. So I had to go back in and reset that. And speaking of, while we're still in the BIOS, I turn off like the TPM configuration and several other things that escape me right now. But
You don't like the trusted platform module?
I don't.
Okay.
I don't have a reasoning for it other than
Lack of trust.
yes. I don't have a reason to keep it enabled, so
Okay.
I would rather turn it off. I'll spend a good like half hour poking through the BIOS of a new machine that I get.
You know, and Phil, when you said that, I'm thinking to myself, wow, I was not really aware that that was a feature. And maybe this is something in later versions of the BIOS that you're running. But I think a lot of just quote unquote regular Linux users who don't jump into that level probably were unaware of that.
Now, I could be completely paranoid, and there's also a good chance that I'm wrong because I don't know everything
Yeah.
that goes on in there.
Yeah, and TPM isn't in all laptops. You know,
okay.
and especially older laptops.
It's only in the enterprise ones, technically. Well, mostly.
Oh, good-
Mostly, right,
yeah,
and
good
the
point.
even newer ones. You know. I think really the push came with new versions of Windows. Really started using it, so then the manufacturer started to include it. But I'm torn on that idea because historically you want to say yes, run it off of TPM because that's supposed to be more secure. There's only certain ways to access it. If you try to do it around whatever the approved methods are, then it doesn't work, and that's like by hardware level. And then the other thing is that encryption to decrypt, encrypt, get to that data is all done in the hardware, not in software. So it really is some processing from your PC. But processors and RAM is so cheap and fast now.
Yeah,
that it
encryption does
doesn't
not
really
add much
matter.
overhead.
Right. And then the other thing is that even with TPMs, there's flaws have been found. And it's easier to update, running software that you have on your system than it is a TPM.
Because firmware updates are much less likely. And we had that flaw with that ID card company that found out the algorithm they used in their hardware was producing predictable, not so random numbers.
Exactly.
So, you know, and that became, and that was actually in the old TPMs that they built the silicone that went into a huge number of laptop manufacturers. So once again, there was a predictable number flaw based on the fact that you had a TPM. So what you thought was relying on securely was there. So something to definitely consider.
Um, and the last thing that I'll do is disable USB booting, SD card booting, LAN booting. I don't need that. If I'm turning on this laptop, then I only need to boot from a specific device that's in there. So I will remove every other possible boot loading option other than my hard drive.
Right. Yeah, and then
that makes sense.
and if you do need to boot from something else, you just go in and turn it on.
Yep. Type in my couple of passwords, get into the BIOS, and I'm right back in.
Exactly.
And you shouldn't be lazy like me and just make sure that it checks to see check the DVD and USB first before it goes to the hard drive.
Yeah.
And that's only because I continually throw different distros on there, and I usually
You have a use case though. That makes sense.
Now, I can't speak for System 76, but I do know Lenovo has always been on top of this, even when they were IBM. When you put a BIOS password on a Lenovo, you have to get out the soldering gun if you'd like to remove that BIOS password by swapping out the BIOS. A lot of the other companies have pins you can jumper just to reset them. That's pretty common. We've actually done that for a lot of people.
Yeah, I remember with Dell's, I used to do that.
Yep, with the Dells. And Dell has a back door. All the Dells I've ever seen, if you take the serial number and this tool is out there, allegedly.
what do you have to search for to find it? Dell backdoor?
Yeah, you can use the service tag of a Dell to get a master password. There's master password generators that Dell has, service and support, that may or may not have somehow leaked onto the internet in certain areas. So basically, yeah, so if you have a BIOS password, you thought you're secure, if you have one of those tools, you can do it. I don't know to what version it goes up to, but the fact that Dell can do that over the phone by reading serial numbers and giving you a special password, that's really concerning. Lenovo, and this is actually one of the things that's kept Lenovo in some of the government contracts, is that reason that there's not a bypass. That you have bricked laptops if you do not know the password.
Oh, hey, the Houston Chronicle has an article. How to use a backdoor master password to change your BIOS.
Thank you, Houston Chronicle.
Yeah. So I'm curious about System 76, but for all these aforementioned things, I mean, obviously, if someone physically has your laptop, that's a whole different thing. That's probably the next thing we should probably talk about is what you do before you load your OS. You put a hard drive password. Yep. So we got that.
Full disk encryption. It's easy to do. It's another password. If you want to do that on your servers or not, that's really up to you, depending on your location in the world and having to crash card a server.
Yeah.
Or have some data centers have to go type in a password for you. But we'll stick to like your
Personal,
administration laptop,
yeah.
or desktop.
What do you use for that? I mean, do you use during the install of the OS, they use the encryption they suggest, or do you have a different tool?
Let's say I'm going through a Debian install. I can click the button for full disk encryption.
Yeah.
Okay.
I'll do that.
Yeah, I've seen that. Now, what happens if somebody's already installed them? They decide they'd like to encrypt the hard disk after the fact. Is that doable?
I don't think, no, you
I
can't.
don't believe so.
They don't, that I know of, have an option to encrypt the hard drive after install. Because it has to kind of be done at the installation layer. And I'm correct me if I'm wrong, Debian uses Lux when you use full.
Yeah.
Yeah. So they're using Lux, and it has to be installed at the beginning. You can't Lux something once it's installed, 'cause it needs to put the data somewhere. Well, technically, there is someone that came up with a really clever hack to push Linux into memory. I don't know if you've seen this.
I did. Yeah,
Yes.
that was really cool.
Push it into memory, unmount your hard drive, do magic to the hard drive while it's in memory. Just don't lose anything or crash because there's no way to recover. Put it back in a booting state and then switch back to it. So it's non-trivial.
Technically, yes, Mary, we can do that. Non-trivial at all.
Definitely sounded non-trivial.
Yeah. So
That's interesting.
yeah, but that's and this is one of those things. If someone does physically have your laptop, and let's say we know Lenovo does a good job, that you have to break the soldering gun out and swap the BIOS, but still, once they physically have a laptop, all bets are off. So they're going to take the hard drive out. They're going to try things like that. That's why it's important to have an OS password and an OS-based full disk encryption.
But if you did want to migrate to that, and you have, let's say, a spare hard drive sitting around, you can drag and drop your files onto the spare hard drive, or rsync them, or transfer files in any number of ways. Reinstall the OS on your laptop, and then just move your files back.
Yep.
Granted, it'll take you like an hour or two or a
Depending on how much
day.
data you have. Yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
But if you wanted to do that, it is possible.
Yeah. And I run my systems too. Even my extra hard drives that I attach to my system, I use Lux. The nice thing is it's well supported for all the different graphical interfaces, where you can just type the password without having to do the command line. When I plug in any of my Lux encrypted drives, it prompts me for the password. I type it in, and I can mount those drives.
All of these passwords are just extra layers of the security element.
Yep.
And then setting a password before you log in to a system, disabling guest login, but you don't need that.
No,
Right.
turn that off. And the goal ultimately is a laptop flying off the roof of a car should be an inconvenience, not a life-changing event. You know what I mean? For privacy.
It could be a budget-changing event.
It's a
but that's
budget-changing
not the
event
worst
for sure.
changing event it is.
We will adjust the budget to account for this now. But yeah, it's just one of those things. Like I people ask me worried about, like, I leave a hard drive sitting. I'm like, it's all encrypted. So if someone took it, I would be upset if they took one of my hard drives that have contained my backups. But I would not go, oh no, they have the keys to my kingdom. So
Well, here's another thing too. What if you have a dual boot system? What happens then?
it's only the half that's encrypted is
Okay.
going to be. So you can set it up so like your Debian install is encrypted, but then a Windows boot next to it, and it won't be. So,
Yeah. So at that point, it's encrypting the individual partitions.
Okay.
Um,
And that's
but you can still do it, have full disk encryption. It's just if you ever update the other or one of the systems, if it changes the boot, or like ROM updates or something,
okay.
then it could work your whole system.
You'll have to go fix the chain level.
Yeah.
And all of that.
Oh,
And
sure.
that can get kind of messy sometimes.
yeah,
Because you don't remember it from the last time that you had to do it, and then you had to learn the entire system, and then you have to go back and do all the research on it, so that way you can forget it for the next time.
I remember doing that a long, long time ago. Just the Windows chain loader.
Yeah,
Oh, God,
And
years
Grub.
ago.
Yeah.
I forgot.
for good reason. I would too.
Yeah, and that's why with this Surface boots, the default boot is to KDE Neo. And listed there is this kind of mishmash of Windows. Oh, okay, that's where the Windows boot is.
so once you've got all that, next thing you're going to want to do is figure out which repositories you want to trust. And we're not going to get into the debate of which operating system you want. I mean, we like cubes. That's what Phil's a big fan of.
And I am too, although I'm not going to put it on.
Yeah. But whichever option you trust, this is something that Windows is really trying to do, and they're doing it completely wrong, as if there's not other companies and major corporations using it properly. But repositories, Windows Store is trying to be a repository, but they've already had some really bad software in there and had some incidents because they just don't do their goal to get things in their own software store / repository has caused them to be lax on security apparently. But what we do is we're used to trusting the repositories in Linux. And kind of the reason for that is they do package signatures, which I think there's a funny website that we mentioned last show called Why App Doesn't Need HTTPS, and it's because of the way each package is signed. So as long as we're trusting the repositories, which we do because there's enough people there, is there ever been any major breaches on any repositories that you're aware of a mainstream Linux versus?
Debian had, wasn't there,
There was something that happened in Azure. They were putting up someone else's binaries, but I don't recall correctly. I know this was an Azure repository problem for certain Linux operating systems.
Yeah, the methods and processes they go through to keep these repositories safe are extensive. To make sure everything is signed, everything's compiled properly. The closest we have had was Python. We talked about that as well, where people were typo squatting and putting different tools in Python. So it's not exactly a security issue as much as a typo squat different program type thing.
That happens a lot in the Node.js community as well. So their package manager is called npm, and it becomes kind of like a community problem, and how those different foundations want to handle those problems.
Yeah, because they're a slightly different problem. They're of a different nature. But ideally, with Linux, you don't really have to download any software from the internet. Once you just add the repositories that are for the software you have, for example, I trust the Kingdom Live people for my video editing, so I add their repository so I get the latest version. I don't have to worry about downloading it from some random source and potentially having something injected into it. And the repositories allow you just to update it. This is actually part of the base that, in kind of the big picture of things, keeps Windows as a less secure option because you're always loading third parties, except for the Windows updates. For Linux, it's not just the operating system updates, it's all the packages and all the things that you can run, that are all the programs that run on this computer, all come from packages, which also kind of tightens up the security of it. With, what does PPA stand for? I'm trying to remember this.
Private.
Private
Archive.
private package archives. As long as you trust the different PPAs, there's a few of them.
I thought it was personal, but
Oh, maybe
Personal,
it's
personal package archives? Maybe that's what it is. We gotta Google it.
that quiet you heard.
We just know you find the trusted PPA, and this is also how you add like those, okay, the amazing universe of software that was available through my distro from Ubuntu to CentOS or Debian didn't have the thing I
Our
wanted.
purchase agreement. Oh, wrong definition.
personal package archive.
Yeah. Personal package archive. Mary for the win. So, and that's something that really makes it clear. So, like, I'm
And
using
there's a PPA Urban Dictionary, but we won't go there.
Don't use that one.
Okay.
I'm using, like, one of the things I wanted to load. I got hex chat. I'm trying to think what else I had to load a PPA for that I wanted a newer version. Well, I was looking at GNU Cache. I wanted a newer version of that. So I have to use their PPA, but because they're also trusted, that allows me to use the 3.0 version without the problems of the older packages that you find. So it's kind of a different concept. I think not everyone understands, like, Linux makes things, in my opinion, just a lot easier once you get your head wrapped around the concept. Because they've made the installing software process really, really simple. You know, apt get install, or the software stores that are run by Ubuntu or any of these other.
And the flat packs for Snap.
Yes.
Those methodologies too. There's quite a few options.
Yeah, that's another way you can trust software on there. Now, one of the things that if you're a Linux admin, like a few of us all sitting at the table are, is we got to generate our SSH keys. Where do you back those up at?
If you've got a password manager, you can do that there. If you put your public key into some sort of configuration management that gets deployed to a server, well, if I forget, then my teammate can take my new public key and deploy it to any boxes. So if it's your own servers and you don't have something like ILO or some sort of like remote backdoor management, you can throw that into your password manager, or you can print it out, put it into a safe, and then have to type in 4,000 odd characters.
And don't make a mistake.
Oh yeah.
Right.
So there's several things.
And the reason you're saying you have a teammate do it is because
If you're working
they're-
on part of a team, yes.
yeah, it's because their key is in and trusted already on the systems, and you want to get a new public key on there. You can't send yours out because your key isn't trusted yet. So you have your teammate send your public key, and the key is the important part of that is it's the public key, not your private key.
Yeah,
that
do
you're
not
sending
send
to
your
them.
private key out.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely do not send the private key out.
Yes.
Yeah.
This is
Thought I should clarify my statement there.
and this is something, there's a few people that wrote some tools, because what happens is someone asked, because I was updating my dot files on GitHub, and someone's like, can you just update things in the root when you're doing like your git and it? I'm I'm like, no, because if you did it in like the root of your home folder and it went and knitted something that maybe was your private key, and there's a few tools that go out there and find private keys that are all over GitHub. People just randomly get a knitting in the wrong directory. So you want to make sure that those are very, very locked down. My methodology is the private key that I use is on 2 locations, one on my desktop and one on my laptop. I just keep the private key in both places, and that way if I lose one of the devices, it's on one of them. Statistically unlikely for me to lose both devices at once, and if I do, I'll just cry. That's my plan C.
Then you have to start typing your passwords.
Yes, I'd have to actually remember what those passwords were and then have to type them in.
That's if you have password authentication turned on.
I don't.
Yeah.
You have to go to the terminal for any systems. I always turn that off. And that's on the security side for servers. Password authentication, like immediately when I spin up a server, I turn that off. Well, does Lino let you do this? AWS does. You can drop your public key in and turn it off as a config when you deploy the things. DigitalOcean does it too with their droplets.
Linode, you can get into this thing called Lish. It's the Linode shell.
Okay.
And there's another way to get into it too. I've had to use it.
Yeah.
It's always a pain, but it gets me back where I need to be.
Yeah. My solution is generally spin up server, log in, copy keys, turn off authentication. And because I'm doing this internal on my network before it ever gets exposed to the internet, I don't do it. So there's a huge order. High entropy passwords from top to bottom is a
Oh yeah.
get those fingers flying when you come up with it. Come up with a passphrase. The longer, the better.
You can come up with a bunch of easy to type words, but in the middle of one of them, you just replace a character with, with a number or something like that. So that, in other words, obviously I have no password with this, but like the quick brown fox jump.
Yeah, or the
And then-
correct battery port staple, the XKCD
Yes.
thing.
Yeah, yeah. there
Which
you
is
go.
actually a popularly used password, apparently.
And so it's, yeah, so it's, it's easy. I mean, it's like an algorithm, and I have an algorithm that I use. I'm not going to get into the detail as far as all the sites and places where I have accounts, so that I have an algorithm, and I just use that. So I have a backup for a list of these passwords. It's a long post-it, which is scary. but anyway, so I pretty much know what I need to do to get into my account on the site, just because I use an algorithm.
Yeah, I go to the method of password generator, password management. I use LastPass.
Yeah.
And I tell it to give me a 21 character password, and then I just paste that into the system that I'm at, or whatever I'm using at that time.
Mine are a little shorter.
Right.
Probably
No,
makes it a little less secure.
So I mean, I really am a strong advocate of password managers because every password should be high entropy and long, and it needs to be unique for every system that you touch.
Now,
Websites or whatever. It needs to be unique, otherwise it just causes issues.
and if you're looking for a good password manager to use, okay, I don't want to use any of the cloud-based ones. KeyPass has come a long way. So if you sync KeyPass to Dropbox, it actually has concurrent and merge support now. I didn't realize it had that. Someone pointed out they're using it for their team internally. And I'm like, well, what happens if someone changes the password? They said it handles all the merges. It's a plugin on there. It's really slick. So you can set it up on there and share it from a team standpoint and merge changes to the database. Because used to, if one person changed it, you had to figure out what the differences were and put it back together. So KeyPass actually has come a long way to being supported. But the more popular one is going to be OnePass. What's one you?
I like OnePass.
Yeah.
My wife and I use that because there's a family plan that we were in the beta for, so it's for us.
And LastPass is equally really reasonably priced. It also has a family plan. The standalone, the free version works wonderful. The paid plan is like $24 a year. So then the family plan is like $60 a year for up to 5 people, I think.
So it's something like that. Starting to use a password manager can be a bit difficult at first, but a week into it, you'll wonder why you didn't start sooner.
Yeah, once you move to
Yeah,
a password manager, life gets a whole lot easier.
Oh, absolutely. If my wife or I forget a password and I we don't have to ask the other one, hey, what's this? We can just go look it up ourselves.
Yeah, K-Wallet isn't that a password manager?
Yeah,
Yeah.
I've not used that one though. I've seen it.
use it.
It's an
I use it as a backup for my password.
Yeah, K-Wallet is KDE based. Seahorse is the GNOME based one. Yeah, I haven't used those.
Leave it to know the one that's underwater. Hey, one thing I wanted to mention too, as far as in your laptop, you've got obviously default DNS servers that either get
Oh,
are
yeah.
set up in your, well, maybe not your laptop necessarily, but set up on your router that your laptop uses. I don't know if you guys are aware of this. I was very hesitant to mention it because the article came out April 1st. I thought, this is a trick article. I'm going to be embarrassed. But then I kept reading it and I'm thinking, it sounds so real. Isn't that what they all say before they find out they've been tricked? But anyway, Cloudflare and Firefox apparently, Cloudflare is launching a free privacy-focused DNS at 1.1.1.1, and it's partnering with Mozilla to support encrypted connection with the Firefox web browser. And that kind of goes back to the earlier discussion we had about Firefox. Is that were we online when we did that, or was that the show?
Yeah, that is in the show.
show,
Yeah.
but well, in related to it, something we didn't mention, but to expand on that is they offer HTTPS DNS. They're working on that, and it's going to be supported in Chrome, I believe, and Firefox, and on Android phones. I believe the support on Android phone. I know it's in the Cyanogen, the different added ROMs and things like that to the phone. There's an option to do that, so that way your DNS isn't subject to whatever problems maybe arising from Wi-Fi networks you connect to randomly as you wander around with your phone. But the same thing applies to your laptop. And when you encapsulate it all in HTTPS, they don't know where you're going because it all does one solid HTTPS signal across for your DNS and the transport layer for your data itself. So to the person, they only see the one connection.
Called DOH.
Go.
DOH. No, DOH. DOH.
Oh, DOH.
DNS over HTTP.
Yes, there you go.
Yeah.
Dope.
DOH.
That's what the people trying to sniff your packets say. Dope. They're using HTTPS over DNS. I can't see what
Quit
they're
sniffing
doing.
my packets.
And
All right.
related to that on the password managers, the web-based ones, we'll probably end it with use two-factor everywhere possible. I use, and my favorite protocol is everything, and all protocols should be this, if we're up to Tom, TOTP-based, which is the time-based authentication protocol. It's an open standard, and it allows tokens to base, as long as you have the time right on your phone, it works. There's a few different utilities you can use to do that. One of my favorites is, I had it on the tip of my tongue, it's called Authenticator Plus. I don't know if you've seen this, you guys have seen this one, but Authenticator Plus actually supports encrypted backups. So you can actually have this on more than one device, and it syncs with the other devices. So if you wanted to have two tokening devices, it works really, really well. I've also got a bash script that generates tokens off of the code, so that's kind of cool too.
I guess as far as key storage, you could also put some of your data on YubiKey.
Oh yeah, that's another good way to do that.
There's also
And YubiKey is a TPM, right? That it's just it's USB based, and because it can generate keys and it will respond with your key, and because it's not like part of the system, you can remove it when you don't want it to be accessed around the system.
it's a Wikipedia says it's a hardware authentication device, but yeah, it'll generate keys for you, one-time passwords. You can even install a PAM module, so that way when you log into a system and try to issue like a sudo command, you can press your YubiKey or run some sort of YubiKey command, and it will give you those elevated privileges. I thought that was pretty neat.
Yeah.
And correct me if I'm wrong here. Didn't the latest version of YubiKey, didn't they close source it after their last release in 2016? I believe their newer versions are all closed source now.
I am unaware of that, but
We
it'd be
covered it
good
a
to
while ago. I was looking
investigate.
through the notes and I found it's in May of 2016. It looks like I don't know if they changed their stance on open source, but there's a fork. Someone took it and made Nitro Key, which is an open source one. And the reason for starting it was because YubiKey went closed source.
Good to know.
So something interesting there, but the same exact concept. So
Excellent.
yeah, just more ways to protect yourself. That's what's important. Lock everything down. Wear your tinfoil hat comfortably.
Mhm. And wrap your computer in tinfoil to really keep you on some.
Oh,
Right.
Or Mylar. There you
yeah,
go.
Mylar works good too.
I duct taped the vents to try and super air gap from attackers.
There you
Now, granted, the laptop
You
burns
what?
out, but
Hey, but nobody's gonna get anything out of it, right?
it's so secure, even I can't get back in ever.
Yeah, never. It's just melted pile of silicone now.
And we've already, have we talked about the tape on the webcams?
Oh, yeah, yeah.
Oh, no, we haven't. So in front of me is a
Piece of tape.
webcam that has a nice piece of red tape on it.
Band-Aids happen to work great, and I see them on more laptops than I ever want to, but
Right.
Band-Aids are really popular. Tape is fine. You don't need a Band-Aid over it, but I don't know why that's so popular. People put Band-Aids over it.
But you can get those little Band-Aids that have little cartoon characters.
That's true.
Fun.
You can have SpongeBob looking back at you. I'm, cool. I'm okay with that.
Or the Minions.
I used to have one of those little slider things.
I think
And it's
Mary's got one.
so thick. Yeah, Mary has one on hers. But on mine, it's so thick that the laptop won't latch shut.
Yeah.
It's pretty thin. But you know what I have here? I think when you guys told me that's what the second little aperture was for facial recognition. So because the little slider here only covered one of the two little holes, what I ended up doing is putting a little KDE button label over the second one. I have that. I don't know if you guys do, but
I need to do that.
and so I've got the slider for the camera, and then I have the little KDE label for the facial recognition for the second one. And then of course there's on this computer there's another one on the other side. So Tom, somebody's been looking at all of these stuff since put something in the corner there. But on the back side, because this this can disconnect the tablet.
Yeah, the downside is, and people have dealt with this a little bit, is they're all listening devices at some point still, because even if you cover the camera, the audio is still accessible. So just heads up there. You've only prevent them from seeing you, not hearing you. So
Yeah, that's true. That's true.
just to be, don't want to get you too comfortable.
It's all the little steps. They add up. So that's it's better than nothing.
Yeah, they get you on watch lists and things like that, so you can feel important.
Yeah, but can't you do this? Can't you take, let's say, for example, take some earbuds and cut the little plug off?
Yes,
it
actually,
I-
you can.
and plug that in.
Actually,
But-
I have seen people do that, right? And used to think it would work, but that switch from the built-in microphone to your
Mhm.
plug-in microphone, that's a software switch. So if they're already in your
Oh.
system and rooted your system, they could be overriding that switch or that change
But if they
and
haven't
still
gotten
be
you
grabbing
yet,
your
that would
internal
still work.
microphone.
Yes, they haven't gotten you yet.
Well,
Of course, you would
then
know.
you don't need to worry about it.
That
Yeah.
I think that's an important distinction to make.
It is.
Do you just trust your computer, or do you operate behind your computer as though it's already been cracked and broken into?
What's the utility you told me about that audits the computer?
There's a tool, at least on Scent servers. It's called Linus, Lynis.
It works on all those platforms.
Okay,
actually.
cool.
Yeah,
Um,
I did some testing of that. I just remember the name.
It's a nifty little security scanner. It'll tell you a bunch of basic things that you should do about your computer. And if you've got any like glaring problems, like allowing root login over SSH. And then speaking of SSH, make sure your firewall is running.
Oh, yeah.
And if you're running just a laptop, why are you running the SSH server? Shut that down. You don't need it.
Yeah, there's actually nothing shared off of my laptop. So that's
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, I have my firewall locked down on my laptop. I just don't say something. I got it now.
Yeah, as speaking of that though, just seeing different servers that are running on a laptop that don't make sense to run. I know that the one you mentioned is certainly a good one. Also, I've seen multiple instances of Apache server running in the background, not on my laptop, but on my desktop. Now, I have used, there are some things that I may have used that have some kind of web aspect to them that might have generated those instances, but I think that it's kind of interesting to sometimes go through processes just to see what's going on.
Yes.
And that's what I've done. And HTOP, I think is, well, that's what I use.
Yeah.
That's a really, really nice one.
Mhm.
Yep. It's got a super cool looking interface compared to regular top.
Yes.
Oh, love it.
Yeah, but you gotta install it. Well, at least on my distro, it's not native. It doesn't come natively with it. You've got to install it. And I think Top is.
And with the FreeNAS U4, HTOP is installed.
There you
Yes.
go. There you go. Okay.
All right. Well, I think that's pretty much most of the get you started. I mean, then once you're done with all this and your laptop's secure, connect to the internet and give all your data to Facebook.
You got to do that.
That's the important last step.
Because if you go work out at the gym and you don't take selfies and post on Instagram,
didn't
did you ever work out? Let's talk for a moment about when you actually do get
Only
online.
if you fell in the woods and the sound was. What was it?
Now, there is an interesting thing. There is a group of people using Google's TensorFlow to listen for illegal chainsaw logging in the rainforest. So if a tree does fall in the woods, eventually TensorFlow will hear it.
It's interesting.
When you do get online, I like to use Privacy Badger,
Yes.
the EFX, HTTPS everywhere, and set
Mhm.
that to strict mode. There's another,
In Firefox,
Go
if you didn't
through.
listen to our last episode, you should be using Firefox, not Chrome.
yeah, Ghostery is a nice one. There's also something called Decentral Eyes, so that will cache JavaScript and CSS that you would typically have to call out to a CDN for your browser to retrieve, but it will cache it locally for you, so you don't have to make as many network calls.
Yeah.
And then always patch your software.
Always
Keep your
update.
system up to date.
Yep.
That's the absolute easiest thing that you can do to keep yourself safe.
Right. Yep.
You know, there's two other things I like to do on my servers. One is, and they're both, well, the fail to ban.
Yeah.
I like to install fail to ban because what it does, it watches for failed logins from a specific IP, and if there's so many, you set the limits on there, then it will actually turn on a firewall rule and block that IP for a certain amount of time. You know, so if you're trying to log in and you type it wrong 5 times, then you have to wait an hour before you can try to log in again.
That might be the reason that I've had to go through the Linode list shell so many times to get back into my own.
Yeah. And then there's actually one for port scans too. If it recognizes
That
the port scan
21
is hitting
character
your system,
password, is that you?
if it recognizes the port scan is hitting your system, it'll block that IP completely from your system. So it starts at whatever ports, and then once it gets close to, I'm assuming once it would get close to a port you might have open, then it'll just start blocking that port or that whole IP, and then they never find out if you have anything open on your system.
Cool. I did not know about that.
Yeah, I've got to look it up. It's not one that I've installed. I was going to one day and then just missed it somehow. But yeah, it's I'll have to look it up again and let you know. But yeah, failed to ban is always, if I have an internet facing thing, I install it on everything. So yeah,
All right. Well, that's how to comfortably wear your tinfoil hat setting up.
you're right. There's lots and lots of other things. So
Yeah.
don't stop there. Usually what I do is when I'm setting up a system for the first time, I will go through the normal things I do. This is internet facing servers. And then I will start Googling, what are other people doing? And I trust the DigitalOcean how-tos.
Those are
I
good
really
guys.
like 'em. Yeah.
I go to those too.
All right.
For the ultra pyramid, I guess you could look up the Visa Stigs for your different operating systems.
Oh yeah.
But that gets
DSA Stegs. I'm not familiar with that.
DISA space STIG, all caps. It's a big, long process. If you want to super secure a machine, you could look into that as well.
Awesome. And run cubes. We did a review of it.
Yeah, that kind of solves a lot of problems.
Yeah,
Yeah.
STIGs is the security technical implementation guides, and it's a DISA is a defense, right?
There's options.
But yeah, so it's security guides that the U.S. government suggests that you follow.
Yep, that's basically wrapping yourself.
Have those
in
regs been
tinfoil.
rolled?
Yeah.
Maybe they've been rolled back.
Well, no, I mean it's general guides, right, of what you should do. Like you don't share passwords, there's
Okay, these are
basic things, but then
standard.
there's things that are operating system and software specifics that they say if you're going to run Microsoft SQL 2016, you should really look at these things and decide whether that's relevant to your organization.
Turn your email into text, please, instead of standards.
Yeah.
You could stop the tracking pixel that way.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Really? Okay.
You know what
Good.
the tracking pixel is?
Yeah, if it's a 1 by 1 pixel, that's like a web beacon.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I know.
Yep.
I know. Yeah. Yeah.
Cool. All right.
That
Well,
was dumb walk then. All right.
all right. So you've come to the end of the show, or we've come to the end of the show.
Yeah. I
And-
think we all have.
Right.
Both you, the listener, and us.
We're all at the end of the show.
Yeah.
Right.
You have been listening to the Sunday Morning Linux Review. This was episode 273.
Healthy paranoia.
Yeah.
This is Tony Bemis.
Mary Tomich.
Phil Parada.
And Tom Lawrence.
See you next time.
You've been listening to the Sunday Morning Linux Review. If you would like more information about this or other shows, go to smlr.us. Feel free to send comments to show@smlr.us or give us a call at 734-258-7009. I'm John Miller. If you don't like it, you can
Bite my 8-bit metal ass. That's bite with a Y.
All right. And we're going to say goodbye. And thank you for watching, everybody on YouTube land. And hit the subscribe button to keep all the updates on what's going on.
Yeah.
Follow us on Google Google Plus and Facebook and
And Twitter?
Twitters
Do
and
we have, does SMLR have a Twitter?
no,
Twitter account?
no,
Let's
but
get that
anytime
up.
if you follow me at TVness, then as soon as we go to broadcast, it gets tweeted. Yeah. All right. Goodbye, everybody.